So hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto marries Fire Daimyo's daughter. If you guys enjoy this, what if? Comment down below. And let me know before I start, please do support for more awesome content. And leave a like and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And also share this video with your friends. And check out the description. And check out my playlist. So let's start the video. Chapter 1. Prologue. It was October 10th. 6 years after the Kyuubi attack. The entirety of Konoha was filled with the cheers and celebrations to the death of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. The bars were filled to the brim with celebrating shinobi, the festival was brimming with joy. It appeared as if everyone was having a good time. Appeared is the key word. On the other side of town, a young child, blonde-haired and with beautiful cerulean blue eyes. As sitting alone in his run-down apartment complex. His name was Naruto Uzumaki. The container of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. He was an orphan, he had no friends, and he never knew love. He had been sitting in the apartment since morning. His Jiji had told him that he was to remain in his apartment on this day. His own birthday. It was really funny. The day that was supposed to be the best in the year was actually the worst. Naruto would get constant beatings, and on his birthdays they were the worst. Last year he had gone to the festival and was attacked by a group of drunks. He had been cornered in an alley and beaten near death. When he awoke, he found himself in the hospital. Again. He had been literally thrown out the next day. Only to return the day after with an even worse condition. After that, his Jiji told him that he was to stay inside on his birthdays. And so here he was. Alone. Waiting for his Jiji to unlock the door the next day. Naruto decided to go to the kitchen and check on his project. He got up and quickly went to the kitchen where his project was. Sitting right there was probably the most beautiful plant anyone had ever seen. It had beautiful leaves that had a perfect texture. The flowers dropped in the morning. But at night they stood up to show a beautiful blue flower. It was probably the rarest and most difficult flower to grow in all of the Fire Country. It was called a tenchirin, or angel's orchid. It was so difficult to grow that no one was able to tell if the legends about it were true. It is said that when the orchid reaches the end of its first pollination cycle, the stems release nectar that is said to cure all poisons. It was also said that the orchid could regrow a destroyed limb in under a few hours. Some even said that it had such a high water content that it was incapable of being burned. Naruto had gotten a seedling when he was on a trip with his Jiji to the Fire Daimyo. He remembered that day so well that he could see it every time he closed his eyes. Flashback: the Sandaime had gone to the Fire Daimyo to secure a meeting with the newest daimyo of Hai no Kuni. Since he was too afraid to leave Naruto in Konoha without his protection, he decided to bring him with him. When they arrived, Naruto was quivering. Over the years he had been abused so badly that he became extremely wary of other people, fearing they would hurt him. Naruto had lost many chances to make friends because of it. The daimyo personally met Sarutobi at the gates with a young girl. She was about a year or so older than Naruto. She was introduced as daimyo's daughter. Naruto quickly hid behind Jiji's legs. The girl saw this and walked over to him. "Hi. What's your name?" Naruto looked at the girl with a quivering expression. "Then Naruto." "Uzumaki." He edged away as she got a little closer. "Naruto." She seemed to go into thought before she shouted with glee, "That's a nice name." She smiled at the blonde and grabbed his hand. "Hey, come on. Come play with me." She dragged Naruto from behind the Hokage and went off to the nearby koi pond. The daimyo chuckled at his daughter's actions. "Well, Sarutobi. It seems that my daughter likes the boy. How about we hold off on negotiations and go check out the little ones?" Sarutobi smiled at the daimyo. "I guess Sora. After all, how often do we get a chance like this?" He pulled out a camera as the two walked over to the two kids. Naruto was twiddling his feet as the daimyo's daughter dragged him over to the koi pond. She had long black hair, lovely golden eyes with a single black slit. Naruto was scared by her eyes. She dragged him over to the koi pond and she sat down, dragging Naruto with her. The two spent most of the day together, just sitting by the koi pond. Naruto slowly got closer and closer to her. When he got close enough that the two could hold hands, he actually smiled. It was the first real smile he had in a long time. But his mood dropped when he saw that it was getting dark out. The girl saw this and asked him, "What's wrong, Naruto?" Naruto let a sad sigh out and spoke. "After today I probably won't ever see you again. You're the first friend I ever had. I don't want to lose that." The girl smiled sadly and tugged into her pocket. She pulled out a small bag and gave it to Naruto. "This is the rarest flower in all of Hai no Kuni. I want you to grow it, Naruto. And I promise that one day I will come to Konoha and marry you." Naruto's eyes widened at that proclamation. "Marry him?" He smiled a goofy grin and yelled out, "I promise you. I will grow this plant no matter how hard it is to grow. I will not rest until it is the most beautiful flower in all of Hai no Kuni. Daimyo." The girl smiled and gave him a peck on the cheek, not being able to take that much in one day he fainted. Then flashback, since that day he had spent every day of every hour nurturing the plant into what it is now. For some reason he was great with plants, one time he managed to bring a tree that was near death back to life just by watering and weeding it. Sure, he spent a bit of time talking to the tree. Not that it could answer. But he always felt he needed to speak to every plant he saw. He never understood why. Naruto was about to water the plant with some special mineral water when he heard banging at the door. He was about to go and see if it was his Jiji when he heard it crash open and he heard angry shouts, "Where's the demon? Find it, this is the night it dies." Naruto was terrified and quickly grabbed the plant. He ran to the other side of the room and opened a special hat he had spent a month working on. He quickly opened the door and then shut it behind him before jumping down the chute. He made sure his flower did not get hit on the walls as he shot out of the chute into the street. He tumbled in a way that he would take most of the blow while the Tenshinhan would not get hurt. He quickly got up and was about to head for the Hokage tower when, it's the demon. Get it? Naruto turned to see a shinobi being flanked by about a dozen civilians running at him. He quickly tucked tail and ran as fast as he could. He ran into an alley and hid behind a trash can. He watched as the mob passed by and breathed a sigh of relief. He got up. But he was knocked down when he felt a crushing blow delivered to his chest. He skidded and hit the end of the alley. He looked up and saw that the alley went a different route. He got up and was about to run when he saw another angry mob at the other end of the alley. He began to cower in fear as a couple jounin closed in on him. Time to die, demon. One of them pulled out a flame-bladed sai and stabbed Naruto in the arm. Naruto squealed in pain as he dropped to the ground but held a tight grip on his flower. The shinobi and civilians kept on beating him, but when they saw that he was ignoring the blows, paying close attention to the flower in his arms, they decided to take a different approach. So, that little plant is important to you, huh? Well, let's see how you like us burning it. The shinobi grabbed the flower and tried to pry it from his arms. Naruto held onto it tightly as the shinobi tugged harder. Let go of the plant, demon. Naruto only held tighter as the shinobi tried to pry it from his arms. No. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. Naruto screamed, leave me alone. As he screamed, a massive output of chakra was felt as the shinobi was knocked away from Naruto. The shinobi pulled out a katana. That's it, you should die. He ran at Naruto and was about to stab him in the heart. When the sword suddenly stopped, the shinobi was shocked and felt a pressure around his limbs. He looked down and was shocked to see a vine wrapped around his arm. He looked down and found that it was keeping him from attacking the blonde. The civilians screamed, the demon's breaking free. Kill it. The civilians charged only to be stopped by hundreds of vines grabbing their limbs and hanging them off the ground. The shinobi saw this and were shocked to the core. That's the bloodline of the Shodaime. The one that allowed him to control demons. But how can I? Oh my god, what have we done? Realization passed through the shinobi as they realized that only a human could command the Mokuton. But one shinobi clearly was an idiot. How dare you use the Shodaime's bloodline, you demon. He ran through some hand seals, cage shuriken no jutsu. A single shuriken he threw became hundreds as they shot at the blonde. Not caring that many civilians would die because of it, the civilians watched as the shuriken came towards them. They closed their eyes and waited for the inevitable. Naruto saw the shuriken coming and began thinking, a mile a minute, what do I do? They may hate me. But I don't want them to die. Someone please help them. As if the vines were listening, they dropped the civilians and began shifting and turning into sheets. The sheets folded like paper and shot towards the shuriken. The shuriken stopped as each piece sliced the shuriken in half. The civilians watched as the shuriken fell to the ground as the sheets unfolded. They were paper. The paper went straight towards Naruto and began dissipating into raw chakra. As the chakra entered the body, Naruto collapsed. The shinobi ran towards the blonde as the one that threw the shuriken was restrained. The civilians looked at Naruto. Confused and afraid. Why would the demon save them? The shinobi were mentally hitting themselves for being so stupid. The one who led the mob grabbed Naruto as carefully as he could. He was amazed that the blonde was holding so tightly on the plant. It must have meant a lot to the blonde. The shinobi quickly turned around and ran to the hospital. Paying that the damage he did was not life-threatening. The next day. Council chambers. When Sarutobi had heard of Naruto's condition, he was outraged. But he was happy that Naruto finally unlocked the Mokuton. Now the villagers could not say he was Kyuubi. When he told the council, he was hoping for good reactions. However, this is not what he expected. The council demanded to know how it was that that demon brat had the Mokuton of the Shodaime. Others were proposing that he be used as a breeding stock. Others like the Hyuga and Uchiha clans were proposing marriage contracts. Finally Sarutobi had enough. Shut up. Now before all of you start going crazy, I will say this once and for all. I do not know how Naruto has the Mokuton. However, since he has the Mokuton, it must mean he's a descendant of the Shodaime. The council erupted in conversation again. Sandaime-sama. If he is in fact a descendant of the Shodaime, why is it he has not shown his ability in the Mokuton until now? The The Sandaime glared at the councilman. Because the Mokuton. Unlike others, it does not activate until the holder of the bloodline reaches a certain age. Even then they have to be in a life-threatening position to activate it. The Shinobi Council looked down, they knew that Naruto was merely a scroll in Kyuubi the kunai. It disgusted them that Naruto was treated worse than the most despicable of criminals. A member of the Shinobi Council spoke up. It was the head of the Mednin division, Hokage-sama. With all due respect. I would like to do a blood test to see how closely Naruto is related to Shadaime. Perhaps we can find his parents. The Sandaime cringed. Minato was dead. And there had been no sign of Kushina since after the attack. He had sent Anbu to look for her to find absolutely nothing. A member of the clan committee spoke up, Sandaime-sama, if Naruto has the Mokuton, then that means he is the heir of the Senju family. If that is the case we must contact Tsunade, if we cannot locate his parents, then she should be able to raise him. The Sandaime went into thought, he had been trying for years to get a reason for Tsunade to come back, maybe the chance of meeting family would be enough to bring her back. I agree. The Hokage flicked his wrist as an Anbu appeared. Have someone locate Tsunade, tell her we found a relative of hers. The Anbu did a quick bow and left. Sarutobi was about to address the council when Fugaku spoke up, Hokage-sama. What of the regards to the boy's future? If he is indeed a member of the Senju family, then I humbly request that he be betrothed to a member of my clan. The Senju and Uchiha were rivals, and the chance for an alliance will be most beneficial to the future of our clans. Fugaku was interrupted by Hiashi who did a quick glare at the Uchiha clan head. Fugaku, you only wish to increase the strength of your clan. Besides. I feel it would be more beneficial if he were to marry my firstborn. So far she shows no signs of becoming a true clan head. And I have seen how she takes glances at the boy. As such I wish to arrange a marriage between the two. The council continued in uproar until Danzo shouted. Why not give him to me? I can make him the most powerful shinobi in Konoha. With his skills in Mokuton and whatever that paper technique is. Along with Kyuubi's chakra, we could train him to surpass even the greatest of shinobi. None would ever dare oppose our power. The civilians at first agreed with Danzo until Tsume snapped at the Warhawk. Danzo, you old fool. Do you honestly think we will let you take care of the pup after what we found in your headquarters? Or have you forgotten why we shut down your little group? Danzo sneered at the woman as he sat down. Sarutobi sighed in frustration, he finally made his decision. I will allow the medical corps to take a blood sample and attempt to find his parentage. Once Tsunade returns we may be able to find some more information on the subject. As for the marriage contracts. Come to my office later and we will discuss that matter. Sarutobi got up and was about to call the meeting to an end when an Anbu appeared in the room. Sandaime-sama. Naruto is gone. The council looked at the Anbu as if he had grown a second head. What? The Anbu cowered in fear as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a note. This is all I found, my lord. Sandaime took the letter and read it. Dear Jiji, I am leaving Konoha for a while. If I can't even be safe in my own apartment on my birthday, then I can't stay here until I am strong enough to defend myself. I will return in time to take the final year of the genin exams. Yours truly, Naruto Uzumaki. Sarutobi sighed as he read the letter. It seems Naruto has left the village. He will return for the final year of the genin exams. The civilians screamed in outrage. How can you be so casual about this? The last known heir of the Senju clan that possesses the Mokuton has left the village at the possibility of dying. Taking the Mokuton with him. The Sandaime glared at the civilians. You did not care for him until after he got his bloodline. And since Naruto does not possess the Senju name he is not under the jurisdiction of the clan committee. Also, since the Mokuton only occurred in the Shadaime we have not registered it as a Konoha bloodline, thus we can do nothing about it. The head of the civilian council screamed in outrage, her pink hair flopping everywhere. He is a relation of the Senju clan, we cannot risk their extinction. I am moving for a vote that we send our hunter nin squads out and capture him, lock him up until he is of suitable breeding age, and then have him impregnate women who will carry the Senju clan's legacy. Many of the civilians agreed, but a quick burst of killing intent shut them up. So you would have Naruto be a father to children of women who he will never even know. I will not allow any of you to do that to him. He will choose who he wishes to marry, and there is not a single thing any of you can say to change my mind. The head of the clan committee spoke up. But Sandaime-sama. You realize that Naruto falls under the Clan Restoration Act. As such, whether he likes it or not, he will have to impregnate multiple women to build up his clan. Sarutobi sighed as he remembered that law. The only one who managed to avoid that law was Minato, and that was because Kushina was so damn dangerous that no one wanted to mess with her. I understand. We will discuss this further. Those who wish to propose marriage contracts, please come to my office later. Dismissed. The council members left the room. Several went to the Sandaime's office, including the heads of the Hyuga, Uchiha, Kurama, and other clans. Others like Shinohiro got their hired Anbu units and ordered them to locate Naruto Uzumaki at once. Meanwhile Naruto was leaving the forest surrounding Konoha's walls. He had escaped about 3 hours ago and had avoided being spotted by the local shinobi. He quickly took out a map that the Sandaime gave him and looked through it. Alright. So I am here, he pointed at a point on the map. And Konoha is here, he pointed to another place. So far I have several options. I could head to Suna, Nami, or any other countries. But which one? Naruto crossed his legs and looked at the map. Suna is too far from here, so it will take a long time for me to get there. And I don't have the supplies to get there either. Nami seems to be the best bet. I can stock up and head to Suna afterwards. And with that decision Naruto got his bag and carefully opened it. And it was a specially made box. He opened it to see the tenchurin in it. After he had tended to the plant he packed up and headed towards Nami no Kuni. Unaware that he was being followed. Chapter 2. Nami no Kuni. The mercenary Anbu unit was in the trees of Konoha's forests, trying to locate the last known carrier of the Senju bloodline limit. The Anbu unit had been tasked by Shinohiro, head of the civilian council, to locate and restrain him. He would then be locked up in a special safe house, where he would be mentally conditioned to do as his masters told him. Once he reaches breeding age he would impregnate several women and they would be conditioned to serve Danzo and the civilian council. The Anbu unit was made up of mostly exiled clan members. A side branch member of the Inyazuka family. She was exiled because she was incapable of bonding with any canines. She was however able to bond with a silver wolf in the forest of death. Once the clan leaders found out she was welcomed back into the clan. But she was permanently banished when she turned her wolf partner into a cloak out of sheer rage. Her name was Urufu Inyazuka. There was also a former Hyuga branch member. He was the only member of the Hyuga clan that died and then came back to life. He had died on the day of the Kyuubi attack, but the Kyuubi's chakra somehow jumped into his system. His mark remained, but his eyes would never be able to wield the Byakugan, nor would he ever be able to pass on the Byakugan. His name was Hirashi Hyuga. The next member was a young man. He was a member of the Nara, Yamanaka, and Akimichi families. But he was exiled from the clans when he broke several of their laws. Selling clan pills to outsiders, setting fire to a Nara deer farm, and using his mind-based attacks to gain. His name was Shinomaru Akimichi Yamanaka Nara. The next member of the squad was a young swordsman. He had failed the academy 3 times, and he was not allowed another chance at the graduation exam. His ability to use chakra was destroyed when he was 12 by the Kyuubi attack, as it fried his systems. He as well as his older brother had the same disease that their father had. His name is Kazuma Gecko. The final member of the team was a pale-skinned man. His eyes were golden color with black snake slits. His nails were black and sharpened, his fangs laced with toxic venom. He had a slim but muscular texture to his body. His name was Hebimaru, the son of Orochimaru. The 5 had been recruited by the underground mercenary guild in Konoha. Each one had their reasons for joining. Urufu loved to hunt exotic things, Hirashi had nowhere to go, same with Shinomaru, Kazuma had grown tired of being compared to his brother. And Hebimaru was hated for being the Snake Sannin's son. Hebimaru looked around when he saw an indent in the dirt. Everyone. Come here. The group followed Hebimaru and landed around the indent. Urufu. See if it's the sprat. Urufu sniffed the ground and grinned. Yep. It's the kid alright. The group grinned, but Hebimaru kept a calm demeanor. Which way did he go? Urufu sniffed the ground again. She tilted her head towards her left and smirked. Good. Let's go. The group ran down the path Urufu indicated. Fully intent on capturing their target. But Naruto was dead tired. He had spent the last week walking towards Nami no Kuni, had eaten berries and birds for food, and he had no source of water since he was on the sea coast. Naruto sighed as he continued to walk. Maybe this wasn't the smartest plan. I am only what, 6? How the hell am I supposed to take care of myself out here? Naruto continued walking. He stopped when he heard people jeering. He looked in the direction he heard it from and found a dock. He looked closer and saw there was a group of kids about his age surrounding a little boy. He ran over to find a sight that severely pissed him off. 3 boys about a year older than him were surrounding and picking on a kid at the age of 3. Naruto quickly ran across the bridge as he listened to their conversation. Because of your new father our parents punished us. The clear ringleader said. Yeah, how about we show you your place, brat? The boy pushed the little kid to the ground. Please. Leave me alone. The kids laughed at the boy as the last kid pulled up a plank of wood. Sayonara. Shit stain. The kid swung the plank and. Hey, the kids turned around to see a blonde-haired kid with blue eyes staring at them. Leave the kid alone. The kids laughed at the statement. And who's going to make us? You? Naruto smirked and ran at the boys while they were still trying to recover from laughing so hard. He grabbed the ringleader's hair and brought his head down, smashing his knee into his face. He then grabbed the plank out of the boy's hand and swung it right across the other two's face. The three tumbled down as Naruto slammed his foot on the ringleader's back, you were saying. The other two quickly got up and ran as fast as they could. Naruto quickly kicked the leader in the stomach as he too ran off. He then turned towards the young boy. He was quivering a bit as Naruto approached him, hey kid. You alright? The boy was shocked at Naruto's kindness. But he answered, why yes. Mister. Naruto chuckled at the statement. Call me Naruto. What's your name? The boy seemed to perk up. Inari. Thank you for helping me. Naruto helped Inari to his feet. But when Inari cringed, Naruto looked at his leg. It was injured and swollen. He doubted he would be walking for a few days. Okay kid, looks like either you will have to limp back home. Or I will carry you. Naruto did a goofy grin, the second option is probably better. He scooped Inari up in his arms and began walking down the docks, so. Which way is your house? Inari got a meek smile on his face as he answered. It's across the river. Naruto mentally fainted at that, but I know someone who can take us across. Naruto smiled as Inari directed him to where they could get across. The man who took them across brought them over free of charge. When Naruto asked why Inari was all the way out here, he said it was because the boy's parents offered to take him around while his Kachan had the day off. The two walked through town. Well, more so Naruto walked through town while Inari was on his back. They finally arrived at a nice little house on the shore. Naruto walked up to the door and used his foot to knock since his arms were being used to carry Inari. He only had to wait a few moments when the door opened to reveal a very beautiful woman with silky black hair and lovely brown eyes. Her eyes widened when she saw Inari. Inari. What happened? Naruto was about to explain when the woman grabbed his shirt and dragged him in. He followed the woman. She dragged him all the way to the living room and sat him on the couch while she tended to Inari's sprain. She cast a sharp glance at Naruto. What happened to my baby? Naruto immediately felt scared and began to sweat. He quickly explained what happened. When the woman glanced at Inari for confirmation, he quickly nodded. The woman gave a nervous smile at Naruto, sorry. It's just that too many people pick on my little Inari. But why was he being attacked by those boys? I am going to have a talk. Naruto smiled at the woman as the door opened. In walked a man with black spiky hair and an X-shaped scar on his chin. He seemed to be wearing fisherman's clothes. He looked at the scene in the living room and gave a stern look at the blonde, have you been harassing my son? Naruto quickly retold the story and the man smiled, good. I am sorry, but I don't like seeing my son get hurt. Anyways, why don't you stay over for dinner? Unless of course you have to be somewhere. Naruto smiled, sure. Why not? The family sat down to a meal of fish and salad. Halfway through the meal an elderly man came in. His name was Tazuna and he was Inari's grandfather. Once he was told of how Naruto helped out Inari, he grabbed the boy in a headlock. Ah, you're alright kid. Hey, how's about you come with me tomorrow? I can teach you a bit of stuff while we're there. Naruto smiles at Tazuna. Sure. Why not? I have nowhere to be for a couple years. The family was shocked by this, he didn't have to be anywhere for a couple years, what about his parents and family? Tsunami spoke up, but Naruto. Would your friends and family get lonely? Naruto dropped his smile at the mention of friends. He looked down before he let a sad smile across his features. No. I have no friends, and my family is either dead or abandoned. The table went silent when they heard the abandoned part. It's no big deal, but since I had to grow up fast, I never really had time for fun. Tsunami walked over to Naruto and wrapped him up in a hug. Oh you poor thing. Inari walked over and hugged his leg while Tazuna and Kaiza spoke to each other at the side. Kaiza, how about you and I teach the boy some things? If what he says is true then he probably doesn't know about taking care of himself outside of wherever he lives. I'll teach him some building techniques and you teach him how to fish. Maybe we can get Tsunami to teach him how to cook. Kaiza thought for a minute he would love to do this. But he also thought that perhaps they should just adopt him. But Naruto seemed to be like him, preferring to go far rather than tie himself anywhere. Tsunami was his only exception, he loved her just like he did his adopted son. Alright. We can ask him after dinner and see what we can teach him. The two agreed and went back to eating. Afterwards Naruto agreed to learn from them. The next day Tazuna brought Naruto with him to his building project. They were working on building a pipe system that would lead to a water filtration plant. Since they were on the ocean the usual freshwater areas were actually salty, not the best thing to drink. While they were building, Tazuna showed Naruto the basic pipes. He also showed Naruto the filter system. Naruto soaked up all the information and made sure he remembered. After all, since he was going to be traveling a lot he needed to learn this stuff. He even helped out Tazuna. Some of the pipes were too small for Tazuna to work on, so Naruto had to help out a bit. Naruto crawled through the pipes and tightened the bolts. When the day was done they went home. Kaiza brought Naruto with him and showed him how to fish. After half an hour of fishing Kaiza started a conversation. So Naruto. What was life back home? He turned to see Naruto's eyes gloss over as he got a sad expression on his face. Kaiser raised an eyebrow at this. I would rather not talk about it. Not yet anyways. Naruto went back to fishing, but Kaiser seemed insistent. You may feel better if you talk about it. Naruto turned towards Kaiser and spoke. No. I won't. Kaiser sighed. But he got a thoughtful expression on his features. What could have happened in the village to make it so Naruto does not even want to talk about it? He decided to ask him later and went back to fishing. He suddenly felt something jerk on his fishing pole. Aiza began tugging on the line as he reeled in what was on the line. He kept letting off some slack as more and more splashes were shown. Naruto got up and helped Izuna tug on the line. Finally, after half an hour of pulling, they finally reeled in a large swordfish. Once they brought it back to the house, they cut it up. Half of what was eaten that night was eaten as sushi, the rest was stir-fried or grilled. Naruto had helped cook the dinner and had learned about the various spices. The same process repeated with Naruto taking part in wood chopping, shopping, he even babysat Inari for a little while. The two were playing in the park when the same three bullies came up to them with reinforcements. Hey Brad, we still haven't paid you back for how your stepdad got us in trouble. This time we brought some friends. He indicated the 10 or so kids behind him. Naruto got up and got into a basic academy stance in front of Inari. You want him? You go through me. A large kid with a wooden plank ran forwards and kicked Naruto in the ribs. Love turned his head towards the group of kids. Get him. The kids ran at Inari, who quickly curled into a ball as they pulled out a bunch of things to hit him with. Naruto tried to get up, but he was smacked across the back of his head by a wooden plank as he fell to the ground. Blanking out as darkness claimed him. Mindscape. Naruto groggily opened his eyes to find himself in knee-deep water. He quickly shot up and looked around. He was in a sewer, but the walls were covered in roots. He looked around as he saw the wood begin to peel like paper. He began walking down the halls of the sewer. He kept taking what seemed like random directions, but he felt as if he was going the right way. Naruto went through another passage when he saw a large gate. It seemed like it was bolt shut and it was covered with hundreds of vines and roots. He looked closer to find an imprint of a hand. He placed his hand over it and it immediately glowed red. He watched as the doors cracked open as the tree roots suddenly tore themselves away from the door and pierced the ground behind him. He began to panic as a fierce wind picked up and pulled him in. He tried to make a grab for one of the roots, but he found himself unable to grab anything. He was finally pulled through the doorway as the gates closed with a slam. The wind stopped as he began to tumble. He pushed himself up and brushed himself off. He looked around as he saw the room light up with hundreds of seals wrapping around the room. He saw a pedestal with 2 palm prints on them and walked over. What the hell? What is going on? Naruto sighed as he placed his palms on the handprints. Oh well. The handprints glowed as his body was charged with a warm energy. It was calm and serene. Outside of Mindscape, Naruto suddenly awoke and looked up. The group of boys were about to wail a beating on Inari that would permanently injure him. He threw an open palm strike as a mass of tree roots ripped from the ground and wrapped around the boys. He then twisted his wrist as the roots went upward, suspending the boys in the air. The large boy that knocked him down grabbed a plank of wood and threw it at Naruto. Naruto swung his arm as the board was sliced in half. The large boy was shocked until he looked at Naruto's hand. Then he was terrified. Naruto's hand had turned into a blade that looked like it was made from paper. The blade quickly shifted and folded until it was a simple hand again. Naruto ran at the boy and kicked him in the stomach and then threw his arm out as a root came out of the ground and wrapped around the large boy. Naruto walked over to the bound 6-year-old and sneered in his face. How do you like me now? He added a bit of killing intent to make his point. Naruto walked back to the house with Inari that evening. It was the last evening he would be staying there, so he decided that he would cook dinner tonight. Inari and him were the only ones home since Kaiser went fishing, Tsunami was shopping, and Tizuna was still building that water filter. Naruto had gone to the nearby beach and began casting out his lines. He brought in about 3 salmon, 1 blowfish, and a lobster. He quickly grabbed the fish and ran back to the house. On his way he stopped when he saw a patch of herbs. He looked through them and found the perfect herbs for the dish he was planning. When he got home, Inari had already set the table and was getting out some cups. Naruto looked at the clock. He only had 3 hours to cook the meal before they all got home. Naruto quickly pulled up a stool and got to work. After 2.5 hours, Naruto and Inari had finished setting the table with time to spare. The two sat down together and watched the sunset. Hey Naruto, Naruto turned to Inari. Why are you making dinner? Mommy makes really great food. Naruto smiled as he sighed. Because I am leaving tomorrow. Inari grabbed Naruto's arm and clung to it. No, don't leave, the bullies will come back. Please don't leave. Naruto wrapped an arm around Inari's shoulders and answered. Inari. If I fight all of your battles, what is going to happen if I die? Inari got a defiant smile on his face. You won't die. Nobody can kill Naruto Nai-san. Naruto smiled as he looked at the sunset. I wish that were true. I truly wish that were true. Naruto perked up when he remembered something. He looked into his pocket and pulled out a kunai knife. He looked at it, it was a blunt kunai with a rusted tint to it. It was his favorite kunai. He had gotten it from his first sensei. She had helped him out so much. But a week later she was fired and replaced with a cruel teacher who would belittle him in front of everyone. Naruto placed the kunai in Inari's hand. Inari. Out of all my possessions, this is one of my most important. I am giving you this, and I promise I will return it. Inari let a tear fall from his eye. Promise? Naruto smiled. I promise. The two looked as the sun finally passed over the horizon. In Konoha, Fugaku Uchiha was growing irate. He had sent out those 5 Anbu over 2 weeks ago to find the last wielder of the Mokuton, and they still had not come back. He was growing very annoyed. The Sandaime had approved all 3 of the contracts from the Kurama, Hyuga, and Uchiha clans. But at the moment it seemed like the other 2 clans would be able to fulfill the contract. None of the Uchiha parents were willing to give up their daughters to the heir of the Senju. It seemed the tensions between the 2 clans still existed. Fugaku was about to go through the documents, seeing if he could find some sort of loophole when he heard knocking on his office door. Enter the door opened to reveal Funu Uchiha. She alone was the last remaining descendant of the original leader of the Uchiha clan. She was considered a monster amongst the clan, same with both of her parents before their deaths. Funu. What are you doing here? Funu walked forwards. She was about 8 years old and she already showed potential past Itachi, but because of her heritage, she was never considered for early promotion. Fugaku-sama. I understand you are having difficulties in finding someone to wed the heir of the Senju. Fugaku narrowed his eyes. Yes. What does it concern you? Funu spoke and released an imposing aura. I wish to be the one offered to the Senju heir. Fugaku's eyes widened. Funu was extremely picky about who she hung out with and now she was asking to be the one who married the heir of the Senju, the heir to her ancestor's rival. Why? Since you are a direct descendant of Madara I expected you to hate the Senju more than anyone. Funu sighed and continued. It is for the exact reason that he is the heir of my ancestor's greatest enemy, I wish to see how powerful he is. Plus, our children would be incredibly powerful, thus giving the Uchiha clan both the Sharingan, the Mokuton, and whatever abilities he learns. Fugaku got a thoughtful expression on his face. She raised valid points, and since she was not the heiress of the clan, then all of their children would be directly controlled by the clan head, namely Itachi or Sasuke. He inwardly smiled. It looked like his coup would be easier than he thought. Very well. I will sign in your name and have it delivered to the Hokage Tower tomorrow. Funu bowed and left Fugaku's office. Fugaku ever noticed the smile on her face. Fugaku, you fool. You just secured that your clan will fall. For once I married my Naruto-kun. I will leave this clan forever, taking the ultimate Sharingan with me. Fungus eyes turned red. The fully developed Sharingan in her eye. Then it suddenly shifted into a symbol that looked like a biohazard sign. Hyuga compound. The Hyuga compound was locked up, serene. Quiet until Hiashi told Hinata she was now betrothed to Naruto. The elders were rolling on the floor clutching their ears when Hinata let loose a fangirl scream that would probably take down the Kyuubi itself. Hinata herself was jumping up and down on her father's stomach saying thank you over and over again. The branch members that were watching could barely contain their laughter. Except for one Niji Hyuga. Hinata had a massive grin on her face as she was bouncing around, screaming how their wedding night would be one to remember, the flowers, the dress, the chance of a family. Itomi, Hinata's mother, was standing off to the side with her newly born daughter Hanabi. She was smiling that her daughter got the man of her dreams. Just like she got with her Hiashi-kun. Hiashi? He was starting to regret telling her before she turned genin, after all, that was when the two would get married. It was also the day after that Naruto would marry the heiress of the Kurama clan. He had no idea how Fugaku was going to get Naruto to marry someone of his clan. But he had to smile at the fact that his daughter was so happy. But Naruto. 2 weeks later, Naruto had left Nami no Kuni the day after. He had then headed straight toward Suna. He had stopped in 3 cities on the way. One where he had gambled a bit. He remembered that it was Tenzaku town or something like that. He had won over 200,000 Ryo at an old gambling hut. The place after that became so popular that the business increased tenfold. Naruto had just arrived in the border town of Suna. He had rented a hotel room in the middle-class district. He had quickly gone to bed the moment his body touched the mattress. The next day Naruto went to a nearby weapons shop where he hoped to buy some equipment. Naruto had not set 2 feet in the door when he saw someone enter an alley dragging a black sack. He was curious as to what was going on and walked towards the alley. He looked to find a red-haired teen wearing a sand-colored cloak and a scorpion mark on his armband. He looked closer to find that he had a Suna headband. But it had a slash mark through it. He looked closer and watched as the man opened the sack to reveal a dead body. Naruto watched in fascination as he inspected the body. He combed the body over with a calculating eye as he ran diagnostic after diagnostic over the body. He seemed to be pleased with the body as he smiled. He quickly packed up the bag. Naruto tried to get a closer look, crash and knocked over a bucket of glass. The man turned around and saw Naruto. He quickly turned and ran as fast as he could. He looked behind to see that the man was slowly following him. Naruto ran even faster. He turned down an alley that had a bunch of trash cans. He ran to the end of the alley and it pointed two different ways. He turned to see the same man casually walking down the alley. Naruto panicked and ran left. He exited the alley into a large crowd of people. They were all dressed in masks, some were Oni masks, tiger masks, hell there was a mask of every possible animal you could think of. Naruto turned and looked behind him. The man wasn't there. He breathed a sigh of relief, "Excuse me, child." Naruto's blood turned cold when he heard that emotionless voice. "Might I ask what you were doing watching me?" Naruto swallowed as he kept saying the same mantra in his head, "Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit." Naruto was about to run when he felt a cold hand grasp his shoulder. He slowly turned around as his eyes widened when he saw who was behind him. It was the exact same man from the alley. Naruto did the only thing he could think of at that moment, thump. Naruto fainted in the middle of the street. The man bent down and looked at Naruto. Such a strange child. Well, might as well take him with me. No sense leaving him in the middle of the street. The man picked him up and carried him in his arms as he began thinking, the child is clearly only 6 or 7 years old and by the looks of it he is an orphan. I wonder. The man smiled to himself as he carried Naruto to his apartment in the red light district. Akasuna no Sasori may have finally found an apprentice. Chapter 3. Apprentice of the Scorpion. Naruto slowly opened his eyes. He groaned as he rubbed the sleep from his eyes. Damn. What happened to me? Naruto pushed himself up and fully opened his eyes. He was in a ratty room with holes in the walls. The ceiling looked like it had mold growing on it. He looked to find that there was a window. It was cracked, but it was still a window. He walked over to the window and looked at the curtains. They looked like they had been eaten by moths. Naruto looked around. Why the hell was he here? The last thing he remembered was that he was running away from some man who had a corpse in a bag. He accidentally caught the man's attention and… oh, shit. Naruto began to panic as he looked around, praying that he could somehow escape. He ran to the door and grabbed the handle as he turned it. To find that it was locked. He looked at the window and ran to it. He opened it up, sending a few shards of glass in random directions. He stuck his leg through the window and was about to jump out. When he saw how high up he was. The room was at least on the 3rd floor. No, make that 4th floor. Naruto went back in the room and looked around, trying to find some way to get out. He looked around. But he stopped in his tracks when he heard the doorknob begin to click. He looked around as the door opened. Akasuna no Sasori walked through the doorway carrying a black bag the size of a man. He looked around and spoke, looks like he got away. He walked and put the bag on the bed, or did he? He slowly stepped around the room. If he did escape. How did he get away? And if he is still here. Where is? He snapped his head to the left towards his closet. He twitched his fingers as the closet flew off its hinges, revealing Naruto cowering in the corner. He quickly ran to the window and was about to jump out of it when Sasori quickly sunshine behind Naruto, grabbing his shirt. Naruto struggled as he tried to get out of the man's grip. Let me go. I haven't done anything to you. Sasori threw Naruto on the bed right next to the bag. Naruto looked up in fear. Sasori walked forward and sat on the side of the bed. Naruto was confused. Why was the man not trying to kill him? Sasori let a dry chuckle escape his lips. Don't worry, child. I have no intention of hurting you. In fact, I brought you here because you seem to be in bad condition. A good thing too. It was supposed to get pretty cold this evening, and with what you are wearing you won't last long. Naruto looked down and had to agree. All he was wearing was a loose set of rags, a worn-out pair of socks, and only had a bag of crackers. He lost the rest of the food when he was jumped by a pair of kids 3 days ago. Naruto nervously smiled but let his face fall. Sasori saw this. I also saw a bit of potential in you, boy. Naruto looked up. You seem to have massive chakra reserves, enough that you will have a severe amount of trouble depleting them. But since you are young, and if taught to control it properly, you could be great. Naruto smiled at the man's praise. Thus, I wish to take you as my apprentice. Naruto looked up in shock. Oh really? Sasori nodded his head. Yada. So when do we start? In Tanzaku town, Tsunade and Shizune were carrying a sack of loot. After Tsunade had lost all of their grocery money, Shizune had pushed her out of the way. In less than 10 minutes they had managed to get 10,000 ryo. Shizune chose to carry the bag. Tsunade however wanted to continue gambling. Come on Shizune, just 1,000 ryo. Shizune turned to her master. No. 500 ryo. No. 400 ryo. No. Tsunade-sama, you need to get out of this gambling habit of yours, we already have debts with several influential individuals, we don't need any more fees we have to pay when we don't even have enough to pay for the debts we have. Tsunade slumped her shoulders. The two had been traveling for the last 6 years, they were both registered as Konoha shinobi, but they chose to leave Konoha. The last time they were in Konoha was 6 years ago when Minato's child was about to be born. If they had not been there then Kushina would have died in childbirth. After the Kyuubi attack she watched as the hospital was set ablaze. She ran into the hospital and found that almost everyone was affected by the Kyuubi's malevolent chakra, most of them going into shock. The next day she fled the village with Shizune when she was told that Kushina and her child were dead. The two entered their hotel room, Tsunade Senju, and looked to find a Konoha Anbu standing in the corner. Tsunade immediately got angry. What do you want? The Anbu stood at attention. Tsunade Senju. I have an S-class message that I must give to you. Alone he turned towards Shizune indicating that she needed to leave the room. Shizune said the apprentice turned towards her master, I'll be fine. Go. Shizune turned towards the door and began to walk out. But she turned her head towards the Anbu with a stern glare. Anything can happen to Tsunade-sama. You die. She walked out of the room and closed the door. Tsunade turned towards the Anbu who was pulling out a scroll. So? What does the old goat want? The Anbu passed her the scroll. She looked at it curiously and began to unroll it. She looked it over, when she finally got through it her eyes widened beyond all possible proportions. Outside of the room, Shizune was standing outside the door, it was too quiet to be normal. She was about to open the door, crash when it flew off its hinges as Tsunade charged out of the room, she turned towards her apprentice, Shizune, pack your bags, we are heading to Konoha now. She ran towards the lobby as the Anbu walked out of the room. What was that about? The Anbu passed her a scroll labeled to her, she opened it up and read its contents. Dear Shizune, no doubt you have seen Tsunade's reaction to the scroll she received, the scroll entailed details of a living user of the Mokuton blood limit. His name is Naruto Uzumaki, there is more information concerning him, but all the information is on Tsunade's scroll, and she is not to reveal it until I deem it permissible to do so. The reason I am telling you this is because no doubt Tsunade will try to use her funds to buy a menagerie of items for a certain reason. I want you to prevent her from doing that. She does not need more debts than she already has. Sincerely, here is in Sarutobi. Shizune looked at the scroll for a minute. Then it suddenly clicked, shit, I have to stop Tsunade from going haywire on the shopping. Holding this she threw the scroll to the Anbu who was now running after her. Next day, with Naruto and Sasori. Naruto and Sasori had left that morning. Naruto and him had shared a little bit about their pasts. When Sasori heard about Naruto's past he unleashed a mess of puppet fury on the surrounding trees he was so angry. Most people didn't know, but Sasori had one weakness. Children, he could not stand to see a child in pain, could not stand to see them sad, and now he finds a child who was often beaten to within an inch of his life, ridiculed and ostracized, and basically abused in both mental and physical perspective. It severely pissed him off. After Sasori had vented, the two had continued on their trek toward Suna. They were not actually going into Suna since Sasori was a missing nin, but he needed to greet his contact. Sasori had a massive spy network that was probably the most advanced and intricate in all of the elemental nations, the only one who could possibly have a better one was Jiraiya of the Densetsu no Sanin. The two arrived in a small town about a mile away from Suna's borders. The two found an abandoned building where they were to meet Sasori's contact. As the two waited Sasori began to get Naruto to start working on his chakra control. Sasori-sensei. How is this supposed to help me get stronger? He indicated to the piece of string in his hand. Sasori sighed as he explained. The exercise is to increase your control, you have far too much chakra to suddenly start learning new things, for now I need you to start on the basics. The object of the exercise is to use your chakra to tie the string into a specific knot and then use chakra to untie it. It is a difficult exercise, but we have no other way to increase your control for now. Sasori began to tinker with a sealing scroll as Naruto began to try and weave the string into a normal bow tie knot. The two waited in the abandoned building for 2 hours. Finally, when Sasori was beginning to lose his patience, Naruto yelled out, "Yada, I did it." Sasori looked to find that Naruto had in fact managed to do it. He was surprised, with chakra stores that were so large he could sense them without even trying, it was a spectacular feat. But then Sasori noticed something, there was a controlled swirl of chakra surrounding his navel. It was narrowing down how much chakra was being used. Sasori was about to ask Naruto about it when the door opened. Sasori turned his head. "Ah, Yura, you're here," said Suna Shinobi simply kneeled in front of Sasori. "Sasori dono. I am ready to make my report." Konoha, Uchiha compound. Yunu was walking towards the Uchiha gates. She had made all preparations for the plan. The one that would bring the Uchiha clan to its knees. Her parents had foolishly left documents around before their deaths, and with her higher than normal IQ of 197, it was child's play for her to understand what the documents meant. She was smart for a 7-year-old. Although she had to thank the foolish Uchiha clan had they not entrusted her idiot parents. Parents who viewed themselves with such high reverence because of their bloodline that they became so arrogant that it was child's play to kill them. She would not have found a person who she could test herself against. Part of the Uchiha clan's plan to conquer Konoha involved Naruto. With the Kyuubi inside of him, any offspring he would have would become pseudo-Jinchuriki, a type of Jinchuriki that had all a Jinchuriki's strengths but had less of the weaknesses. After she found out about Naruto having the Kyuubi inside of him, she followed him to see if her inborn power would do to him what Madara did. Her great-grandfather went to Kyuubi, but when she found him, beaten and bruised, left near dead, she could not bring herself to do it. She looked him over and found the wounds already healing. But she stayed by his side and did what she could to nurse him back to health. She was only 5 at the time she found him beaten near death and was only 5 when she began observing him every moment she could. She was only 5 when she made a vow, I will make you mine. And I will be free of this pathetic clan for good. And now. She was betrothed to him. Now all she had to do was make sure that she was dominant in the group of girls that were lining up to have Naruto. She had no problem sharing, what she had a problem with was being submissive. Her plan was coming to fruition. It looked like that little tip that she slipped Itachi was successful. Now all she needed to do was let the pieces fall into place. And she would be the only Uchiha left alive. And the Sharingan. No. The perfect Sharingan. Would belong to the Senju clan and the Uchiha clan would fade into the pages of history. She thought about her ancestor, Madara. You were a fool. You had the chance to gain a powerful bloodline when the Shadame's sister offered herself to you, but your arrogance blinds you to the truth. But soon. The gift you passed on to me. Will be in the Senju clan. Funu activated her eyes and spoke, Ninpo. Shunshin no jutsu she disappeared in a swirl of black flames. Going to a safe house. While the Uchiha clan was massacred. Barama compound, Ikumo was painting in her room. Her father had told her she was to be betrothed to the heir of the Senju clan. She accepted, not caring in the slightest. She was far too depressed to care. A week ago her teacher had sealed her up. She felt such betrayal, she regressed herself into a shell. Her parents were worried about her. They asked Kurenai why she sealed up her bloodline. Her only reply was, she needs to learn to control. Her parents tried to get her to explain, but Kurenai left before they could question her further. Lately Akumo has been having constant nightmares where an Oni takes over her body and uses her to its own ends. This worried her parents, as it was a sign that the darker curse of her bloodline had finally come out. She only found solace in her paintings. Before she heard of the engagement she painted scenes of darkness and pain. But after the engagement she began to paint happier scenes of weddings, flowers, mountains. Ikumo was painting furiously, trying to get out what was so intently on her mind. But every time she made a brush stroke she heard that same voice, let me. She tried to shake it off, but it kept coming. Finally she began to lose consciousness as she tried to finish the painting. When her eyes snapped closed she snored. Her eyes opened revealing glowing orbs. She suddenly picked up the brush and with a wicked smile, began to paint a picture. She grinned wider with each second. She finally placed the brush down, perfect. Suddenly Yakumo fell back to sleep as the painting was revealed. It was a painting of a burning Konoha with a silhouette of a wedding in the flames. The male had glowing crimson orbs, with a silhouette behind him. A silhouette of 9 tails. Time skipped 3 days later. Naruto was trying to get the string to turn into different knots. So far he had managed to get it into a hangman's knot, a bow tie now, a sailor's knot, and a lace knot. But he was still having difficulty with the kunai wrap knot. Sasori had described that the knot was basically the wrapping around a kunai handle. But since he had to kunai handle he had to make do with his finger. Thus making it more difficult to properly channel the chakra through the fingertips. Naruto looked over the knot Sasori had made to see what he was missing. He looked it over as he checked to see where he was going wrong. He was channeling chakra through the string like Sasori had told him. But for some reason the knot kept undoing itself after he finished. Naruto began to wrap the string around his finger again. Suddenly he looked his finger over. He remembered in one of his sensei's lectures that there were points in the entire body and the more chakra on had the more chakra points there were. Naruto tried to use his entire finger to make the knot. He smiled when he saw that it was a success. Yada, Sasori-sensei, I got it. Sasori looked over to the blonde, astonished by his progress. Amazing, he has shown such great skill so soon. It's remarkable. I definitely found the right guy to be my apprentice. Now to start him on my technique. Sasori walked over to Naruto, very good. Come, we have 3 days to get started on the next point of your training. Sasori began walking towards a tree. He tapped on the tree, shook his head and moved on. He went to another tree. Tapped it, shook his head again and moved on. He continued this for a few minutes until he stopped at a tree with a dark red wood. He tapped it. He nodded his head, he circled the tree and tapped it a couple times. Finally he smiled. Sasori pulled out a scroll and suddenly was surrounded by smoke. Naruto covered his eyes as the smoke swept over him. As the smoke cleared he looked to where his sensei was. His eyes widened when he saw another figure with his sensei. There was what looked like a humanoid figure. Its arms were like that of a large, but were curved like a machete. It had empty eye sockets, but its mouth was filled with saws. The thing was wearing a crimson cloak with a design of a red scorpion on it. Sasori was twitching his fingers, the humanoid object began to move, suddenly it looked at the tree and swung its massive blades arms. It then closed its mouth on the tree and began slicing it into wooden logs and planks. It began using its arms and sliced up the logs and planks into smaller bits. The logs and planks fell to the ground into a neat pile. Sasori pulled out his scroll and suddenly the object vanished. He put away the scroll and walked over to the wood. He began to inspect it, he turned towards the shocked Naruto. "Naruto. Come." He pulled out a scroll and opened it. The wood disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto slowly walked towards his sensei as they headed to a cave. When they got there Sasori set up a fire using some of the wood that he deemed unfit for usage. Finally when the two sat around the fire Sasori spoke, "Naruto. As you saw, my art revolves around puppetry. I will start you off with a simple design to work on, after that you will begin to design your own form of puppet. Once you have created a few decent, regular puppets I will introduce you to the pinnacle of my art." Sasori unconsciously placed his hand over where his heart should be. Naruto was curious about this, but chose to ignore it, for now. "I wish you to create a simple battle puppet." Sasori pulled out a scroll and passed it to Naruto. Naruto looked at the scroll and opened it. Sasori-sensei." Sasori looked at his new apprentice. "Yes. What is it you require?" Naruto looked away, as if he was ashamed of something. "I can't read kanji." Sasori's eyes widened at this, for a child at 6 years old to not know how to read. It was barbaric. Sasori spent the day teaching Naruto how to read the scroll. Naruto finally got the hang of it and began to read it on his own after a while. The next morning Naruto began to use the wood and began to craft a battle puppet. The design was humanoid, but Naruto shaped the fingers to resemble talons. Naruto also carved in his own insignia. A tenchurin flower with a red slitted eye in the middle of it. He did not know why he put it there. Naruto worked on the puppet for several days, applying gears and joints to where Sasori indicated. Finally after 3 days of working on the puppet it was now functional. At least from Naruto's perspective. The puppet resembled a simple mannequin, its mouth was filled with sharpened teeth. Its shoulders had planks of wood that had a storage seal on each one. The hands were replaced with claws, each nail curved to resemble a talon. The eyes were red and had black slits in them. For some reason Naruto felt the need to place them there. Sasori inspected the puppet, he began using his chakra strings. He quickly got the handle of it, but he noticed that there were some quirks in the design, but he was not surprised, after all Naruto did not know how to read until a few days ago. He looked towards his student, "Well done. However, you made the bolts too tight on the left arm and the neck movements are too loose. But besides that the design is quite good. Now. We will begin the next step." A week later, Naruto and Sasori were heading towards a village in the land of rivers. Sasori had made a contact in one of the major villages and he was now awaiting the end part of the bargain. Naruto's outfit had changed a bit. He was no longer wearing rags. He now wore a long black poncho with tattered edges. The hood shadowed his entire face, as well as provided a way to shade oneself from the sun. Underneath the cloak he wore a wire mesh shirt and a set of black hakama pants. The poncho had 3 pouches, all 3 contained scrolls. One had his completed battle puppet and the other 2 contained his new puppet designs. Both were works in progress. Sasori was now using his Haruko puppet. Naruto had wanted to know why it looked so much like a human, but Sasori had told him he would find out when he was older. Sasori wanted to wait until Naruto was skilled enough in puppetry before he dropped the bomb of human puppets on him. The two had entered the town, Naruto was holding a scroll at the ready. Sasori had told him to always be wary of others, and now that he was meeting a strange man that Sasori had told him he had only met through a various series of spy networks, he was extremely edgy. The two arrived at their intended destination, it was an old cave near a river. The cave was covered by a Sasori placed his palm near the cave entrance and then dropped it, revealing a beautiful pagoda door. The door opened as the two walked through it. When they entered there was a light in the middle of the room with a man wearing a black cloak with red clouds standing to the side. His face was covered by a straw hat with bells on it. The man spoke with a stoic voice, "Akasuna no Sasori. I have what you asked for." He reached into his cloak and pulled out a scroll and passed it to Sasori. Said missing nin took the scroll and gave it to Naruto, who placed it in a pocket in his hakama pants. "I must thank you. Without your poisons I would not have been able to pull off my feat." Sasori chuckled a bit. In Haruko his voice became more gravely and aggravated. Yes. I hope that you are not cheating me on my prize. The man shook his head. No. Unfortunately the item was damaged, missing parts of the right side. However, it looked like it had been removed intentionally. Sasori growled to himself. That means that someone has vital portions. No matter, I shall still find use for it. The man stepped back as Sasori turned to Naruto. Naruto, no one noticed the man's eyes widen. Please leave the room for a few moments. Naruto nodded his head and exited the room. Sasori looked back at the man. So. By the change in your chakra and the stance you are in, you must know this boy. Said man looked down. Yes. I knew him before. I used to watch out for him on Sandame's orders. He was such a nice boy. The man looked down as Sasori pondered. Yes. He is a nice boy and he shows amazing potential in my art. Hopefully he will surpass me before I expire. The man nodded his head. Well, I must be off. Also Itachi reached into his cloak. I have a message for you. From my organization. Sasori took the scroll. You do not need to reply now. But it is highly suggested that you do at some point. Sasori nodded his head and put the scroll away. Thank you. Itachi-chan. Itachi smiled under his hat. No. Thank you. Akasuna no Sasori. He disappeared in a swirl of leaves as Sasori turned towards the door. Now having a body that his student can create his first human puppet with. The body of Shisuya-chan. Chapter 4. Return. Hitetsu and Izumo were standing guard at the gates of Konoha. Ever since Tsunade's return 5 years ago they had been placed on guard duty constantly. She had taken up the position of Godame and had proceeded to punish every individual who had ever hurt Naruto. No one has been told the relation as far as blood between the two, but if he had the Mokuton then the two had to be related in some way. And that was more than enough reason for Tsunade to want vengeance. Hitetsu and Izumo had been spared from her wrath. They had never harmed Naruto, nor have they ever assisted him. Now that they thought about it there was a lot more they could have done for the blind. Hitetsu sighed, man. I really miss that. Izumo sighed as he slumped down. I know what you mean. Izumo then thought about something. Hey. Didn't the Sandame say that Naruto would be returning before the final year of the academy? Kitetsu perked up. Yeah. So he should be returning soon. I hope so. Izumo cringed at the statement. Once Tsunade became Godame she had sent several leagues of Anbu to locate Naruto. They came back after 3 weeks, not finding anything in the slightest. They were about to fall asleep, they heard the ringing of bells. They looked down the road to see 2 individuals walking up to the gates. They were both wearing straw hats with bells hanging from the edges, and they were both wearing black cloaks. With red clouds. Akatsuki Jiraiya had explained for everyone to watch out for them. Kitetsu and Izumo were about to get into battle position. When one of the individuals suddenly disappeared. They went wide-eyed before they felt a pressure at the back of their necks. As everything went dark. Tsunade's office. Tsunade was brushing through the documents as quickly as she could. Ever since she came back to the village she had been extremely edgy. Once she found out how her relative was treated she had gone completely nuts. In a matter of days she had managed to destroy several restaurants, level the orphanage, and destroy his old apartment complex. She had then proceeded to arrest every individual who had ever hurt Naruto. And it was a long list. She had personally done the DNA testing for Naruto. And what she found shocked her. Naruto's DNA matched that of her little brother. But how? Minato was not related to them. As far as she knew. Once she found out that Naruto had been living alone, she had gone looking everywhere to find Kushina. She had even sent Anbu to look through the ruins of Yuzugakure. To find nothing. She pondered to herself, where are you Kushina? If you abandoned your son. Heads will roll. She sighed to herself as she was about to approve a new document. Tsunade looked up to find her old sensei standing there. How are you doing with your new position? Tsunade frowned at her old sensei. The two had been working together since she took the position and she was finally starting to get the hang of it. But how the hell did the bag of bones ever manage to do all this paperwork and not go crazy with it? I am alright sensei. Although, I wish that Naruto was here. The blood sample they used to test him with was at least 3 weeks old and a fresh sample might produce better results. I want to know how closely he and I are related. It may answer some questions I have had for a few years. Sarutobi curled an eye at her and sighed. Yes. I miss him too. I would give anything just to have him in this room right now. Even give up smoking. Old man. The 2 shinobi turned around to find 2 individuals wearing Akatsuki cloaks standing in front of them. They immediately got into battle positions as Sarutobi spoke. Identify yourselves. Or die. The 2 turned to each other and chuckled. The one standing next to the one that spoke sounded feminine. A male individual reached up to his hat and said, why of course he pulled off his hat to reveal his face, a Jiji standing in front of the legendary medic ninja and the god of shinobi. Was Naruto Uzumaki. Sarutobi could not contain himself. Naruto, he looked Naruto over. He had grown to an impressive 5'2". He had lost a good amount of his baby fat, his hair had grown a bit longer, and it now resembled Minato's hairstyle. His eyes were still the same cerulean blue, but they now had a darker tinge to them. All in all, he looked like a true shinobi. Naruto noticed Sarutobi's shocked expression and smiled. "Hey old man. You better close your mouth before flies nest in there." He chuckled as Sarutobi quickly closed his mouth. "So. How has the village been? I see you finally got yourself a replacement." Sarutobi chuckled at the blonde. But then turned his attention to the girl standing next to him. If the giggle he heard before was any indication of her gender. "Who is the young individual standing next to you?" Naruto turned towards the person and nervously smiled. "Well. I don't know how to say this but. She is. Kyuubi no Yoko." The two shinobi turned their heads towards Naruto. Then the girl. Then Naruto. Then the girl. "What?" Naruto held onto his ears as he grumbled to himself. "Somehow I should have known that was going to happen." He waited for the two shinobi to stop hyperventilating before he explained how he met the Kyuubi. Flashback. Naruto was trying to focus his large chakra reserves to create enough strings to make his new puppet move. It was a large spider-like puppet that had specialized chakra leeching nets used for capture. The problem was that in the way the puppet was designed, it was impossible to fully control it with just the usual 10 fingers used for most puppetry. So he was trying to use the technique Sasori-sensei used for his performance of 100 puppets. The problem was that he had so much chakra that he could barely do the regular 10 for more than 2 minutes before he collapsed in exhaustion. He was now sitting and meditating, trying to focus his chakra like Sasori suggested. He said it was something he learned from a traveling monk. Naruto had been sitting in the same position for half an hour trying to focus his chakra. Finally he sighed, "This isn't working. Man, is there any other way for this to work?" He opened his eyes, expecting to see lush green forests. But instead he found himself in a sewer with vines randomly crossing over the walls. Where the hell am I? He quickly jumped up and began to walk through the hallways. He looked around until he came to a door. It was practically calling him. Not thinking, he opened the door and looked inside. There was a massive cage that looked like it was being closed shut by a large mass of vines. Well. So my container comes to greet me. I was wondering when you would be coming here." Naruto felt the ground tremble as he heard the loud voice. He looked into the cage as steam began to come out from between the bars. Naruto's eyes widened as a toothy grin appeared along with a set of glowing crimson orbs. "So. To whom do I show this pleasure? Little one?" Naruto looked up at the creature as more of its body was revealed. "Hey Kyuubi no wa Yoko?" Kyuubi smiled as it winked at Naruto. "Correct. You aren't as dumb as I thought you were." We should probably talk more. Comfortable environment." The smirk on Kyuubi's features made the blonde incredibly nervous. Suddenly the Kyuubi began to shrink as it began to take a new form. When the Kyuubi finished its transformation, there was a human figure lying on the ground. Naruto's eyes widened when he saw it. Or rather her features. She had crimson red hair that fell to the small of her back, she had a pale complexion, long slender arms, a perfect hergless figure. And an impressive set of breasts. She looked to be about 15 years old. As she stood up she revealed her whole form. Completely naked. Naruto blushed crimson red as she stared into her crimson eyes. She must have seen the blush because she playfully giggled as she placed a finger at her lips. Making her look even cuter. "So. Do you like what you see?" Naruto did not know whether it was her looks in general or if it was how she said it. But he did the first thing that seemed logical. He fainted. If you people are having any trouble with Kyuubi's human form, just think of Mocha from Rosario Vampire with crimson hair and red slitted eyes. Then flashback, Sarutobi stared at the blonde. Having a hard time believing what he said. But then again, Naruto hasn't lied to him as of yet, so. How did she escape from the seal? Naruto sighed. He opened his mouth, probably about to answer. When the door was opened by a frantic Hiashi Hyuga. "Hokage-sama. 2 Akatsuki members have been spotted at." He looked around as he saw that there were several individuals in the room. He then saw the Akatsuki cloaks. "Hokage-sama. Why are there 2 Akatsuki members in your office?" Hiashi looked at Tsunade expectantly. Tsunade opened her mouth to answer. When she suddenly felt a large mass of killing intent. Coming from Naruto. Naruto was glaring at Hiashi with a look that would possibly scare Orochimaru. He performed a set of hand seals and pulled out a scroll. The scroll released a bath of white smoke as a puppet came flying out of it. Hiashi was so shocked that he had no time to move. He watched as the puppet came at him and noticed its features. It was very skeletal, its mask was like that of a ghoul. Its cloak was tattered and ruined. And it was carrying a massive scythe. He was about to get into a Jaiken stance. "Stop." The puppet stopped mid-strike. He looked to see the other Akatsuki members. A beautiful 15-year-old woman with crimson eyes was holding on to the now crazed Naruto. "Naruto. Calm down. calm down. Naruto blinked a few times as his crazed look softened. He withdrew the puppet and sealed it back into a scroll. Naruto walked out of the room. As he passed by Hiashi he whispered, "I am sorry." He left the room and walked down the hallway. Kyuubi follows close behind. Hiashi looked at Tsunade with a look that said, "What the fuck just happened?" The three shinobi looked down, wondering what the hell was going on. At night. With Naruto. After Naruto had left the office he walked around the village. He had seen that there were a few changes to the village. But not enough so that he forgot the places he was beaten in. He looked down an alley. It was the last place he was beaten before he left for his training trip. He had walked around the village until he made it to the top of the Hokage monument. He looked at the village as he revealed a seal over his heart. He ran a bit of blood over it. Unsealing the tenchurin flower. He examined it for a minute as he looked at it through the moonlight, wondering if the tenchurin's legends in regards to the full moon were actually true. Since the flower had not yet opened at night, nor was it a full moon, he could not say for sure. He began to trim and comb the flower, making sure that it was perfectly cared for so that when she came to Konoha he could properly present it to her. Meanwhile, in the daimyo's palace, Mitsuki was looking at the moon, thinking to herself. She had been doing this ever since she had told Naruto that if the tenchurin flower was grown properly, she would come to Konoha and marry him. But when she found out that he had left Konoha she was very upset. She often thought of what he must look like now. Her fantasies often brought the 13-year-old to very inappropriate places. She looked at the pond where her and Naruto had hung out for the day. She had cried there for over an hour when she heard that Naruto had left the village. She had finally stopped crying when her father had told her that she would be the first one he told if he got any new information on Naruto. She walked over to her bed and fell on it as she slowly allowed sleep to claim her. Her sleep was interrupted when she heard her father yell, "Mitsuki. Naruto is back in Konoha." She then flew out of bed and ran for her closet, looking for the best possible dress so she could properly present herself to the blonde. Unaware that there were 3 girls in Konoha doing the exact same thing. The next day, with Naruto was running through the exercises Sasori had taught him. He had finally managed to learn enough about puppetry that he could use his more advanced puppets. He could not however control more than 2 puppets at a time. He was now practicing using his newest puppet, Fuin. It was probably his most useful puppet. It was covered in seals that could hold just about anything. In fact, he had essentially made the puppet more of a portable base than anything else. Thanks to a large amount of advancements it could transform into a base for a small battalion. He looked the puppet over. The puppet itself was in the form of a barrel. However, the body was covered in many storage seals. The arms were also covered in storage seals. The entire puppet was like a large ant. He was inspired by Sasori Sensei's design for Kurori, Black Ant, albeit his own design was a bit bulkier. Naruto sealed up his puppet and went to reach for another puppet to modify and train with. When he touched a black scroll. He traced the scorpion design on the side and whispered, "Sasori Sensei." He then looked at the scroll next to it. It was also black. But it had the design of a hawk with broken wings. He immediately grew angry as he looked at it. He sighed and reached for a scroll. When an Anbu with a cat mask appeared in front of him. She had long purple hair and had a slender figure, Naruto Uzumaki. "The council wishes to see you immediately." She quickly shunshined away from the blonde as he began to walk towards the Hokage tower. Meanwhile, Mitsuki was riding her horse right through the gates of Konoha, not even bothering to watch out for who was in the way, all the time yelling, "Get out of my way." Meanwhile her parents, Sora, Daimyo of Hai no Kuni and his wife, Natara, were following up at a more steady pace with a small entourage of samurai nearby. Natara looked down as her face palmed, "Oh boy. She is really excited right now. I wonder if we should have waited to tell her that Naruto came back to Konoha." Her husband looked down as he sighed. "Perhaps. But I don't think you want to be the one with snakes crawling underneath your covers." Natara shivered. She often wondered if Mitsuki got her obsession with snakes from hanging with her uncle. At least before he defected from Konoha. True. I curse Orochimaru for letting his niece sign that damn snake contract. But then again it was a family heirloom. The two saw that Mitsuki was getting too far ahead and proceeded to speed up the pace of their horses. Meanwhile 3 girls were heading to the Hokage tower to meet the man they were pledged to. Several minutes later. With Naruto was walking up the steps of the Hokage tower. He was about to turn a corner, Naruto-kun. He was barreled over by a certain red-haired demoness. He looked up at Kyuubi and twitched. "Kyuubi? Where the hell have you been?" Kyuubi got off of him and smiled. "Oh. You see, I went to the hot springs for a dip. But they were so nice and comfortable that I fell asleep there. Sorry for making you worry about Naruto-kun." She wrapped him up in a hug and positioned his face in between her breasts. Naruto began waving his arms around as he began to lose the ability to breathe. Finally Kyuubi stopped giving him the pleasurable hug of breathlessness. And finally released him. He got up and began taking deep breaths. "Okay. Just don't worry about me like that again, okay? She nodded her head and did a mock salute. Yes, sir. Naruto's face palmed as they began to walk to the council chamber. Naruto knew the Hokage tower like the back of his hand. So it was no problem getting around. When they finally found the council chamber, he did what he normally did and just kicked the door right in. I am here. What do you want? The council looked at the blonde and his companion as he simply walked into the council chambers like he owned the place. He sat in a chair on the side of the wall as Kyuubi sat in the one next to him, so. What am I here for? Suddenly the doors were thrown off their hinges when Tsunade came barging through it, Sarutobi following close behind, and began yelling at the council, what the hell were you all thinking? How dare you do something like that the moment he leaves the village to train for a few years? The council began to shiver as Tsunade released a massive amount of killing intent. Naruto looked at Tsunade with a shocked and confused expression, what the hell is going on here? Tsunade turned to Naruto and sighed. Naruto. I think it would be best if you sat down for this. She passed him a bottle of sake. I know you are underage, but once you hear what the council has to say you are definitely going to need it. He nervously took the bottle of ache and looked at it quizzically. Thanks. I guess. He slowly edged to the seat he was assigned to and sat down. All the clan heads looked at him. He was about to say something when Sarutobi's old Kunoichi teammate stood up. Naruto Uzumaki. As I am sure you know, you are the last remaining user of the Mokuton blood limit. As well as the user of a paper bloodline that we have decided to call. She was cut off by Naruto. Origami no. The council looked at Naruto quizzically. The art is origami no. It is an aim no kuni style of fighting that uses the bloodline of Ranbanhata or paper body. The council looked at him as if he had grown a second head. He began to massage his temples. I went through aim no kuni and met my aunt. Konan Uzumaki. She says that she and her twin sister were separated when their parents divorced. Apparently my mother's name is Kushina Uzumaki. What? The yell came from the clan heads. All of them are bug-eyed at the name. Shibi, surprisingly, was the first to voice his concerns. You mean that he is the son of Kushina? Then that means. Shibi's glasses fell from his nose, revealing his compound eyes as he fainted from shock. Hiashi was surprisingly the one who continued. He is Minato's son. Shit. Hiashi also proceeded to pass out. Tsume stood up and shouted at Sandaime. You bastard, you told us he was dead. Sarutobi looked down as he explained. Minato had too many enemies and I would love nothing more than to get their hands on Naruto. I did what I thought was right to keep him safe. He looked towards Naruto who was confused. Not that I am not enjoying you all yelling at each other. But who is Minato? If he is my father I have a right to know. Naruto looked at the Sandaime with an expectant look. Look, Naruto. I would love to tell you who your father is, but your father had too many enemies and they would love nothing more than to kill you. Naruto glared at the Sandaime and indicated to the civilian council. And having my own village try to kill me is much better. I would rather be in danger from outside enemies than inside enemies. And if my parents are alive I would like to know. Please. Sarutobi saw the look in his eyes. It was not one he had ever seen on the blonde. It was desperation. He sighed as he answered Naruto's question. Naruto. Your father. Was Minato Namikaze. The Yondaime Hokage. The one who sealed Kyuubi inside of you. Naruto had a blank look on his face as he stared at the Sandaime. What? Naruto exploded, releasing chakra in such high amounts it was visible. The council was so shocked by his chakra output that they were not able to prepare for the shockwave that came with it. Naruto began to grind his teeth together as he began to angrily ramble. You mean to tell me that my own father condemned me to a life of hell? What the fuck kind of father would do that to his own son? He fell into his chair and sighed, bitching and moaning about it isn't going to help me. The council looked at the blonde as he then looked back at the council, so. If I may ask. Why the hell was I brought here in the first place? The council looked at him. Tsunade decided to answer for him. The council. In its infinite wisdom. Chose to have you arranged to marry 3 young girls from the Uchiha, Hyuga, and Kurama clans. Naruto's eyes bugged out. He then reached for the bottle of sake. Corked off the top and then drank it as quickly as he could. He then screwed back on the top as he looked at the council. Meanwhile, outside the council chambers, Funu Uchiha, Hinata Hyuga, Yakumo Kurama and Mitsuki were standing outside the council room doors. Hinata was being escorted by her mother, Funu was walking alone, Yakumo was being escorted by her grandfather, and Mitsuki was being escorted by the Daimyo. They were about to open the doors when they heard a loud yell of The group looked at the doors as a single thought went through their heads. What is going on here? Chapter 5. The Council and Academy. Naruto was releasing so much killing intent that he actually made a few older shinobi counselors soil themselves. Are you telling me that I will leave for a few years and without my consent, you all arrange marriages for me with girls that I have never even met? What the fuck is wrong with you people? Hiashi Hyuga stood up. Naruto, since you are the last of your clan you need to be betrothed to several women to rebuild your clan. The fact that they are of high standing will improve your clan's image. Naruto snarled at Hiashi. Who asked you wide eyes? A better question would be. Who the fuck asked me if they could betroth me to anyone? Did anyone here ever consider that I don't want to rebuild my clan? Everyone was shocked by his statement, and even if I did, I want to marry for love, not for some screwed up politics you assholes. Naruto turned towards the doors of the council chamber. He turned back to the council, and by the way. I already have someone in mind for a possible wife. He opened the door, expecting to be able to walk home. But what he saw in front of him made his jaw drop. There were 4 absolutely beautiful girls standing at the front of the council room. All of them wearing illustrious kimonos. The girl to the far left was wearing a black kimono with ornate flaming designs running up the cloth. Her hair was tied back in a regal ponytail. Her lips had a luscious red lipstick to it. Her eyes were perfectly shaded. A deep midnight black. She carried herself with an authoritative stance that would be worthy of a true kunoichi. The girl standing next to her had beautiful dark purple and was wearing a white kimono with feathers coming from a raven as a design. Her lips had a slight tint to show a small amount of makeup. Her eyes were like the Hyuga heads. But they were a softer lavender color. She carried herself with a shy stance. But he could see an underlying potential in her. The girl next to her was stunning. She had a pale complexion, as well as stunning dark red hair. Almost a brownish color to it. She was wearing an earthen kimono with ornate vines crawling up the side. Her lips were lightly tinted red and she had a small amount of blush. She carried herself with a calm, tranquil stance. The last girl left him speechless. The girl was wearing a lovely green kimono with beautiful ornate serpents along the designs, stitching and hemming. Her hair was a silky black and her eyes were golden with snake-like slits. She carried herself with a clearly excited stance. He knew who she was. After all, she was the one who gave him the tension flower. Naruto stared at all 4 beautiful girls and he began to stutter. Ah. Ma. Humana. Ha. Thump and he fainted. Hinata, Funu, Yakumo and Mitsuki looked at Naruto and suddenly turned to each other and screamed, "Look what you did to him." The girls began to bicker and argue as their escort sighed to themselves. This is going to be more difficult than we thought. Isn't it? They all watched as the girls continued to bicker as Kyuubi picked up Naruto and carried him back into the council room. After they had managed to get the girls settled down they had all re-entered the council chambers. Kyuubi had managed to wake up Naruto. But she was currently trying to convince Naruto to remain long enough to at least consider the benefits. And she was currently failing. Kyuubi, look. I understand where you are going with this and the fact of the matter is that I do not wish to accept the Kra. Naruto-kun, this will help your clan. And. Naruto cut her off. Look Kyuubi, I know you think this will benefit me in the future, but the fact of the matter is that I refuse to marry anyone unless I hold genuine feelings for them. Kyuubi sighed as she looked at Naruto. And for now. Accept the Kra, but only allow girls who genuinely care for you and that you care for as well be with you. Does that suffice? Naruto looked at her to retort. But sighed. He was going nowhere with this. Fine. I will take the Kra. Under the conditions that the girls that I marry have to genuinely care for me. I will look them over for any seals that are forcing them to do this and I will immediately remove them. If I see even the smallest amount of deception in their eyes I will not even look in their direction. Am I clear? The clan heads nodded while the civilians muttered to themselves. Sarutobi stood up. Besides that fact. Naruto. What exactly did you train in for the past 5.5 years? Naruto looked at Sarutobi and smiled. Well. I studied puppetry. As you saw in your office. Sarutobi smiled while Hiashi shivered. I also studied sealing, bijutsu, and various ninjutsu. Oh yeah, summoning and. He was immediately silenced when the entire council yelled. Summoning. Naruto cringed at the loud noise as he sighed. Yes. Summoning. I got the contract when I went through Mushy Pass. Shibi Aburam gasped when he mentioned Mushy Pass. But. Mushy Pass is a deadly area filled with dozens of insect species that no one has ever been able to control. Much less survive. Naruto looked at Shibi and sighed. That's because the insects in Mushy Pass are summon animals. Just like the toads on Mount Myabakuzen. Everyone looked at Naruto. You thought all summon animals came from some sort of alternate dimension. The clan heads looked down while the civilian council curled an eyebrow. Naruto slapped himself in the face. Man. Well, I am sure you want to know how I got the scroll. I was walking through the forest with my sensei. The two of us got separated. I ended up in the Mushy Pass when I tried to look for him. And man was it hell going through that place. Flashback. Naruto ducked as a large wasp came flying at him. He used his bow staff and swatted it out of the way. He then ducked again as another wasp came hurtling at him, damn it. No wonder people hate these things. Naruto swatted away another giant bug as he pulled out Vanguard. He had since modified his first puppet and it was now his favorite puppet. He used his bow staff as a mount as he jammed it into a wall. He jumped up on the bow staff and swung his puppet at the insects. We sliced a few in half. The insects just kept coming at him, damn. Where the hell are all these things coming from? Naruto turned around as he swatted another one away. He looked around as he saw another group of the massive insects heading towards him. He mentally cursed, shit. Can this get any worse? Suddenly the ground he was standing on shattered beneath him as he fell downwards. He began sliding down a slick gooey substance. He finally found an end as he crash-landed into a slimy pool of whatever the hell he was in. He pushed to the surface as he began to spit out the substance which managed to get into his mouth. Ack. What the hell is this shit? Naruto opened his eyes. And they widened when he saw what he was in. He was in a nest. He looked to find large eggs. About the size of a toddler. He began to stand up. He looked around to find the cave covered with large flowers that seemed to move. He waded to the edge of the pool of slime and crawled out, gasping for breath as he did. Damn. What the hell is this place? He pushed himself up as he looked around. He was in some sort of catacomb. He began to walk around when he began to notice all the insect life. If there are more bugs down here. I better be careful. Naruto took a step forward, crunch, and he looked down. He had stepped on what looked like a giant tick. But it had a stinger at the end of it. And it had a small set of wings developing. Naruto was about to step again, when he heard the loud shriek behind him. He quickly turned around to see the walls moving. The rocks, which apparently were not rocks, began to fold into the wall. The wall began to crumble as Naruto saw the giant creature. It had to be the biggest bug he had ever seen in his life. It had the form of a massive wasp, but it had long front legs like a praying mantis. And it had massive wings. The insect opened its eyes, showing crimson orbs. It saw where Naruto's foot was and shrieked. It scuttled over to Naruto where it tried to impale him on its spiked tail. Naruto swerved out of the way and slammed the bug in the face, making his own body shake with the vibrations. He managed to gain enough of his own movement back so he could avoid a strike from the insect's frontal claws. He jumped out of the way and threw a kunai at the bug. It bounced off of its armor. Naruto cursed, shit. This thing has to have a weak point. Think Naruto. It's just a big bug. It has the same anatomical features and… Oi duh. Why the hell didn't I think of that before? Naruto ran towards the bug as it began to flap its massive wings. As it was about to jump off the ground, Naruto drove the bow staff into the insect's incredibly soft wings. He then tore upwards, shredding the wing. The insect fell to the ground as Naruto dealt a strike to its abdomen. The insect fell over and lay limp on the ground. Naruto was about to walk away when he suddenly heard scuttling. He turned around to look into the shadows. And his eyes widened at what he was seeing. There were large beetles coming at him. But they seemed to be going at a steady pace. His eyes widened when he realized why they were going so slow. He now admits. The bug he was fighting was not the biggest he had seen. Slowly a massive form was revealed. The head was similar to that of a queen termite. But it had rhinoceros beetle horns. 3 to be exact. Its legs seemed to be gangly, but it had 6 massive pincers up front that looked like they could cut through stone. As more of the insect was revealed, he noticed large green pods on its back. Suddenly one of the pods exploded as a worm-like creature fell to the ground. It squirmed for a minute while it began to move towards one of the pools. The insect began to raise itself as Naruto noticed that the end of its body was connected to it. What appeared to be a massive sack. The flowers he saw in the cave began to light up. And his eyes widened in horror. The sack that the insect was connected to went deep into the catacombs and circled around the nearby sludge pools as they poured out more sludge. He stared into the insect's compound eyes. He could have sworn he heard a hissing sound come from it before it directed its attention to the insect that Naruto had just barely defeated. It began to click and hiss at the insect. The insect responded by hissing and clicking as well. The two continued this until the massive insect, which had to be big enough to be a boss summon, directed its attention to the wall behind Naruto. It began to click rapidly and before Naruto knew it he was being wrapped in webbing. He tried to struggle but he fell over as he saw what was wrapping him up. The flowers on the ceiling and walls were actually massive spiders about the size of a man. They finished wrapping him up as another insect came crawling up to him. It sat near the base of Naruto's neck and began to leak out a digestive fluid that ate at Naruto's flesh. Naruto hissed in pain and tried to struggle, but he was being held down by the spiders. Meanwhile the insect dropped a single egg into the hole as it began to secrete a saliva-like substance that closed up the hole. The pain then began to crawl up his spine until the pain skyrocketed in his brain. The spiders let go of Naruto. But immediately he felt incredible pain at the base of his neck. It felt like someone was drilling into his spinal cord. He suddenly began to interpret the clicks and hisses into words. The process seems to be working. Quite interesting. And he is quite resilient, he may in fact be worthy. He kept hearing these noises and words until the pain finally stopped. He groaned in pain as the spiders began to cut the webbing around him. He suddenly heard chuckling. He looked to find that it was coming from the massive insect. I see. You are strong. But we do not know if you are worthy of the gift we wish to dispose upon you. We shall see through your memories. Suddenly Naruto saw every last pain that had ever happened to him. He heard the other insects' clicks, growls, and their screams as he saw all of his memories. But why were they screaming? Suddenly the memories stopped flooding through his mind. He looked up to see the insects looking down. And they were shaking as if they were crying. Suddenly he heard the giant insect sob out, "You have suffered so much. Yet you do not strike back. You hold good in your heart. You are worthy." The insect waved its massive front claws as another insect came crawling out of the wall, carrying a massive scroll on its back. Naruto looked at the insect in confusion. "What are you talking about?" The insect spoke up. "We are the insect summons. For over 300 years we have guarded the scroll of our family, thinking that none would ever come to be worthy of signing it. You, however, are worthy of that honor." The insect carrying the contract placed it in front of Naruto and began to unfurl it. On the scroll were 5 names. Andre Abiram, Karamis Kamizuru, Lilinet Arthagist, Hiyori Kitamura, and Zephan Segmist. Those individuals were the only ones to ever sign our contract. And each one took a clan away from the contract. The Abirams took the Kakachu. Kamizuru took the bee family. The Arthagist took the rhinoceros beetles. Kitamura took the tarantulas. And Segmist took the termites. Each of the clans taken was essentially kidnapped. But we have not been able to find them. Naruto looked at the first name. Abiram. So a clan from Konoha had kidnapped the Kakachu originally. And? You want me to have this honor? When you have already lost 5 clans. The insect nodded its head as it answered. Yes. I do. Naruto stood and placed his hand over his heart. Then I swear to you. I will find the wayward clans. And I will try to bring them back for you. What is your name? The insect seemed to smile. If it was possible for mandibles to make a smile at least. My name is Kabutamashi. Then flashback. After that I met back up with my sensei. By all dumb luck he had managed to capture a segment and an Arthagist. And both were the current holders of the scrolls. The clan heads looked at Naruto in shock. But Abiram's head looked down. But we have grown so attached to our Kakachu. Must you really take them from us? Naruto gave Shibi a serious look. Perhaps if I speak to Kabutamashi-sama, I might be able to work out an agreement. But the other 2 contracts must be returned. Shibi sighed as he began to pray. Kabutamashi would allow his clan to continue using the Kakachu. Suddenly a civilian council member spoke up. Who was your sensei? Boy. Naruto looked down with a sad expression. My sensei. Naruto's eyes began to water. The clan head saw this and all of them thought, what happened to his sensei? Clearly the civilians did not see this nor did they care, as one of them, a pink-haired woman yelled out. Stop stalling, brat, and tell us who your sensei was. He couldn't have been all that great, seeing as he is not here with you. If he was so great he would have come with you and… The woman was silenced by a blast of killing intent from the blonde. My sensei was Akasuna no Sasori. And I had the misfortune of watching him die. He let up on the killing intent and sat down. The council began to whisper in shock. Well, Danzo stood up. Lord Hokage. Surely someone as skilled as him would make a fine addition to my root division. He has the Mokuton and a Megakure bloodline limit and he was trained by Akasuna no Sasori. The greatest Suna ninja to ever come from their ranks. As such, I request that he be placed in my root division. Danzo was mentally sneering at the boy, who 2 years ago had foiled his plans at an alliance with Hanzo. Naruto glared at Danzo and spoke, oh really Danzo? And why Percy would allow you to be my leader? When you had the gall to try and kill my Antem? Everyone turned to Danzo who was now sweating bullets. He knew I was there. How? I saw him fighting head-on. How did he manage to see me from that distance? Danzo spoke up as calmly as he could, I have no idea what you are talking about. Naruto snorted as he turned towards the old warhawk. Whatever. Besides. I promised Ajiji that I would attend the last year of the academy. He turned to Sarutobi. Am I correct? Sarutobi smiled at the blonde as he answered. Through Naruto. You did in fact promise that. Sarutobi turned towards the council. I see no issue in that. Do any of you? The clan heads shook as a sign they did not disagree. The civilians grudgingly agreed. Meanwhile Danzo was fuming. Damn. His power would have given me the strength to take you down, Sarutobi. Now how am I going to take the position of Hokage? Sarutobi smiled. Tomorrow, Naruto will start the academy. He began to write down a form. This is the room number. Naruto took the piece of paper and smiled at Sarutobi. Thanks, Ajiji. He and Kyuubi sunshine out of the council chamber. Later that night. With Funu was cursing to herself. Her plans were slowly falling through the toilet. She was not the last remaining Uchiha as she had planned. Instead, that pathetic excuse of a genius had spared his worthless little brother, leaving 3 Uchiha living. Funu looked at the training post that had a symbol carved into it. Her eyes changed from her regular eyes into the Sharingan. And then they shifted into the biohazard symbol, Amaterasu. And a black flame shot from her eyes, destroying the dummy that had the symbol of the Uchiha clan carved into it. She began pacing as she thought to herself, damn it. My plans are slowly being destroyed. Not only is that pathetic excuse of an Uchiha still alive, but also Naruto-kun will only marry for love. I have to worm my way into his heart. But how? I know I care for him. But I have no idea how to show it. She sat next to a tree in the apartment she had bought after the Uchiha massacre. She had managed to smuggle a large amount of scrolls from the compound before Sasuke got a hold of them. This gave her an advantage. Not only was Sasuke stuck with the most pathetic Uchiha clan justices, but he was also so hell-bent on revenge that he would never be able to properly learn them. She smirked to herself, I will not be defeated. My dear Naruto-kun. She walked upstairs, ready to prepare for the next day at the academy. Next day, the academy class was waiting for their teachers. All of them were extremely anxious since their parents had told them that they were to receive a new classmate. And not just any classmate. A senju who has the Mokuton. Sasuke was brooding, on the inside however he was scheming, I will defeat this dope and I will make him teach me his justice. So I can kill him. Hinata was quivering. She knew who it was and it made it that much harder to get out of bed. But she wanted to gain Naruto's affection. Funu was thinking of possible ways to get Naruto to fall for her. Kiba was looking at Hinata with lust, I will beat this new dope and I will show Hinata-chan that I am the man for her. Yes, Kiba will be bashed in this fic. Why? Because it is funny. Sakura was ogling Sasuke, whoever this boy is, he will never beat my Sasuke-kun cha Shanro. The doors opened as Iruka Yamino and Mizuki Tao walked through the doors, alright class. I am pleased to announce that we have a new student today. Please treat him with the same respect you wish him to give you. The doors opened again as Naruto stepped through them. The class had mixed reactions. Hinata was blushing at him, Kiba was snarling when he saw the blush, Sakura was humming at the sight of him, Sasuke was looking at him as if he was a pole to be measured, Funu was looking at him with a seductive smirk. The reactions continued until he spoke, hello everyone. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I hope we can all get along. Chapter 6. Academy and Akatsuki. The Sepro Evolution. Juiken Naruto and Mokuton Naruto. Check his profile. Red Eyes Inferno Kaiser. Code Geass Naruto crossover. Check his profile for details. BRACOHALO 117. Well. I think the challenge is good, pouts. Naruto had done exceedingly well in the academy. When he first joined the academy top he was automatically placed as the dope. But in less than 3 months he had taken the 5th place by storm. He developed friendships with many of his classmates, Choji and he both shared a love of various foods. Although he preferred ramen whereas Choji preferred barbecue pork. Both he and Shikamaru had tactical minds. Although Naruto was a lot more energetic than Shikamaru. He and Ino both shared their appreciation for flowers. The two had taught each other various gardening techniques in their free time. He and Shino had become quick friends. Especially since he showed Shino his insect contract. However, with friendships came enemies. And his worst enemies were Sakura, Sasuke, and Kiba. At first he thought he might be able to get along with Kiba. That is until the second week of the academy. Flashback. Kiba pushed Hinata against the wall with a lecherous grin on his face, oh come on Hinata. Why not, I mean in a few months we will be shinobi and we might end up dying, why waste this chance? Hinata struggled against Inuzuka's grip. It told YUK Kiba. I love another. Kiba began to squeeze her arms and make her squeal in pain. It's that Naruto shit he tightened the grip he had on her arms, oh please. He could never please you like I could. He puckered his lips and leaned towards Hinata. Hey, shit stain. Kiba turned and saw the end of a bow staff smash into his face. Forcing him to let go of Hinata, Kiba tumbled and hit a tree nearby. Akamaru, who had been whimpering off to the side, walked over to his master and began to whimper. Kiba pushed himself up and saw who had knocked him down. His eyes narrowed when he saw Naruto standing in front of him wearing a black cloak with red clouds, holding a bow staff. Naruto pointed the bow staff at Kiba, I suggest you walk away Kiba. Or someone will get hurt. Kiba snarled at Naruto and got up. Yeah, and it's going to be you. He ran at the blonde with his claws extended and slashed at the blonde. Naruto sidestepped him and delivered a punch right into Kiba's chest. Kiba staggered a bit and coughed up a bit of blood. Naruto stepped back as Hinata stood a few feet behind Naruto, you have a lot of nerve treating a woman as you did in Inuzuka's slime. I could have you arrested for attempting to force yourself on a woman. Naruto spoke the next part with finality, especially my fiancé. Kiba glared at the blonde. While Hinata had hearts in her eyes. He accepts. Kiba snarled at the blonde and then pointed to Hinata. I will do whatever I feel to women, all they are good for is to cook and make kids. Naruto snarled at Kiba as he spun his bow staff. You should think before you say things to Inuzuka. Especially in front of me. Naruto launched himself at Kiba and buried the tip of his bow staff in Kiba's chest, cracking several ribs. Kiba coughed up more blood. Naruto jumped in Kiba's guard and delivered a strike at the mutt's chin. Akamaru quivered in the back, feeling intimidated by the blonde's aura. Kiba was launched into the air by a strike from Naruto's bow staff. As he was flipping backwards in the air, Naruto jumped up and placed the bow staff firmly on his waist at a horizontal angle. He then began to spin in the air and directed the spinning bow staff at the Inuzuka. Kiba was launched into the ground. Kiba landed face first into the dirt, scratching up his face quite badly. Naruto turned to Hinata and walked over to her. She flinched when he reached out to touch her. He retracted his hand. Don't worry. I am not going to hurt you. He slowly reached towards her and began to examine where Kiba had gripped her. There were claw marks. He looked at the Inuzuka and made a mental note to talk to his mother. After he fixed Hinata's injury, he got up and began to walk away. Wait. He turned around and saw Hinata twiddling her fingers as she looked at her feet. The part. About, me being why your fiancé. Were you? Naruto cut her off before she could continue. Since the council meeting. I observed you. You seem to harbor genuine feelings for me. He turned to look her in the eyes. I may not harbor the same feelings for you. Yet. But I guess I can at least give you a chance. Naruto turned away and walked over to Kiba. He picked him up as Akamaru whimpered near him. He walked out of the academy and headed towards the Inuzuka compound. Flashback end. Kiba had been severely punished by his mother. It was considered a disgrace in the Inuzuka clan for anyone to force themselves on another without the other person's consent. Kiba had been disgraced in the clan because of it. And had forever lost his position as heir to the Inuzuka clan. The day it was the genin rank placement. And there were many people hoping to be placed on a team with their friends. Yunu was watching Naruto with a sad look in her eyes. He has accepted the Hyuga heiress. He accepted the daimyo's daughter before any of us could try. And me. I haven't even managed to muster the nerve to tell him how I feel. To think. The granddaughter of Madara Uchiha. Not even able to muster up the nerve to tell the man I love how I feel. She slumped into her chair as Iruka and Mizuki entered the room. Alright, class. I will now announce the top 5 academy students for this year. He looked at his clipboard. 5th place goes to Shino Aburam. 4th place goes to Hinata Hyuga. 3rd place goes to Funu Uchiha. Funu snarled to herself. Had the academy focused more on practical skills rather than history lessons, she would have taken 2nd or 3rd place. 2nd place is Sakura. Haruno said a fangirl did her classic banshee shriek, making half the class go deaf. Once Iruka was able to hear again, he continued, and 1st place. For the title of Rookie of the Year. Goes to the fangirls of both Naruto and Sasuke. The Sasuke fan club being led by Sakura and the Naruto fan club being led by Ami. I looked forward to it. The boys edged closer to hear who would be the Rookie of the Year. Finally Iruka spoke. There's a tie between Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha. Congratulations, this is the first time there has been a tie for Rookie of the Year since Andain graduated from the academy. Now. Iruka was silenced by Sasuke, who stood up and yelled. This is unacceptable. Only an Uchiha could ever be worthy of the honor of becoming Rookie of the Year. Not some no-name clanless freak. The room became silent as Naruto turned to the Uchiha and snarled, you want to say that again, Brad? The two got into a glaring contest. You are a no-name clanless freak who should be kneeling in front of me like a dog. I will not share the title of Rookie of the Year with anyone. Naruto smirked. Then how about a little spar? The winner is Rookie of the Year. The loser becomes the dead last. The class broke out into whispers as Sasuke smirked. Get ready to be put in your place. Dope. Sasuke got up and walked to the training field. Naruto followed suit. The two combatants looked at each other. Iruka stood between them as the two got into fighting stances, the match between Sasuke Uchiha and Naruto Uzumaki. This is a purely taijutsu match, Bunshin, Henge, and Kawarimi are allowed. Nothing else. Hajime. The two shot at each other and smashed their fists into each other. Sasuke pulled back his fist. It felt like he was punching iron. Before he could react, Naruto had delivered a strike to Sasuke's side and sent him to the ground. Sasuke got up and sent a kick to the blonde, who quickly blocked it with his forearm. He grabbed Sasuke's foot and yanked him off the ground. He spun him around 3 times before he slammed Sasuke face first into the dirt. Iruka nodded, the winner is Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto began to walk away. The rest of the class was applauding. Sasuke pushed himself up and glared at Naruto's back. No. I refuse to lose. To a clanless freak like him. Sasuke ran through hand seals. Iruka saw this and yelled. Sasuke stopped. The spar is over. You lost. Sasuke finished his hand seals and screamed. Pain. Bikaku no jutsu. He inhaled and then breathed out a ball of fire. Heading directly towards Naruto. Naruto slowly turned around and saw the fireball coming at him. He sighed and performed a single hand seal, Mokuton. Mikuja Heki. The fireball engulfed Naruto. Much to the shock and dismay of a good portion of the class. Yunu ran forward and screamed, Nuo, Naruto-kun. She ran to the area that was burning. Hinata ran forward, but she suddenly stopped. She turned to see that Kiba had grabbed her arm and had a grin on his face. Now I am the only one you can have. He grinned. But he fell over when Hinata kicked him in the nuts. She ran over to where the fire was, tears streaming down her face. Sasuke grinned as he looked at the fire. Yes. No one can compare to me. I am invincible. Sasuke began to laugh like a maniac. Until the fire cleared. Right where the fire was, there was a dome of what appeared to be wood. Everyone's eyes widened. How did a dome of wood appear in the middle of a spar? The only person who could do such a thing was Hashirama Senju. Would Naruto be? Mokuton? Jubaku Iso. The ground beneath Sasuke erupted as Naruto came flying out of it. Being followed by dense vines that began to wrap around Sasuke. Sasuke was fully wrapped up in the vines, leaving only his face visible. Naruto landed in front of Sasuke and placed a kunai at his throat. I won. Dope. Naruto smirked as he walked towards the students. And was glumped by two sobbing girls. Hinata and Funu. Naruto was not surprised by Hinata. But Funu? Funu latched onto his chest and sobbed out, I thought I lost you. She began to cry into his chest. Naruto lifted her chin and made her look at him. Funu. Tell me. Do you truly and honestly care for me? Funu hiccuped and nodded her head, are doing this for any reason to gain power. She choked out a sob as she shook her head no. Are you doing this to gain my family's bloodline? Funu sobbed and shook her head as she buried her face into Naruto's chest. Naruto sighed, he lifted her chin, Funu. At the moment I do not love you. But like I told Hinata. I will at least give you a chance. Funu smiled and rested her head on Naruto's chest. Hinata snarled at Funu, she then pulled Naruto off of the ground and with a new resolve yelled at Funu, back off bitch, he is mine. The class was startled by Hinata's boldness. Funu was slack-jawed for a minute before she grabbed Naruto out of Hinata's grip and pulled him to her, making his face go between her breasts. No way, he is mine, damn it. Hinata grabbed Naruto's arm and pulled. Mine. Funu did the same. Mine, 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 mine. The class was following how the two heiresses kept pulling Naruto, as if it was a tug of war. The Naruto fan club was letting tears fall. Why can't I have Naruto-kun going through each of their heads? This continued until Iruka managed to break up the tug of war and directed the group of kids to the class. Meanwhile, Ikumo had sat in her room painting for the last few months, only leaving to get food and drink and to go to the bathroom. She had been painting the same portrait for the last few months. Ikumo was smiling as she thought to herself, I will make you mine. Naruto-kun looked at the painting. It was of her and Naruto in a lecherous pose, her eyes were glowing a dark purple. And Naruto's eyes were glowing red with black slits. An aura of 9 tails in his background. And a burning Konoha behind the two as they made love. Ikumo's eyes began to glow purple, soon. We shall become one. The next day, Genin placements. Iruka walked into the classroom to find all of his students quiet. He was at first surprised. Until he saw that all of them were asleep, he sighed and opened his mouth, wake up. The class practically jumped from their seats as they turned to their teacher. Now that I have your attention, I will be assigning you all to your Jonin instructors. He pulled out a clipboard as he walked up to the front of the room. Now there has been a change in team placements. In the past it was 3 Genin assigned to 1 Jonin. We are doing an experimental run to see possible future team success. There will now be 2 Jonin assigned to 4 Genin. He looked at the clipboard, team 1 is. Naruto sat and relaxed as he waited to see who he would be teamed up with. Team 7 will be Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto smirked, Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto's face twitched, Sakura Haruno. His face twitched even more, and Kiba and Inuzuka. Naruto headed. He smashed his face into the desk as he began to curse to himself. Iruka sadly looked at Naruto as he continued, Team 8 will be Hinata Hyuga, Funu Uchiha, Ino Yamanaka, and Ami Midarashi. The 4 girls looked at each other. While lightning seemed to cross between Hinata and Fungus's eyes. Team 9 is still in circulation from last year. So Team 10 will be Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akimichi, Shino Abiram, and Sai. Iruka looked at his students, may you all prosper in your careers as shinobi of Konohagakure no Sado, return here for your team placements in a week. Iruka walked out of the room as the students began to file out of the room. Naruto walked up to Hinata and Funu, who were waiting for him at the door, so. Do you two want to come to my house tonight? We are having a celebration for graduation at my place. The 2 girls curled an eyebrow. We? The 2 asked simultaneously. Naruto smirked as he whispered in the girls' ears. It's a surprise. He turned to the rest of the class, hey. For those of you who got an invitation to the celebration tonight, Head to the training ground tonight at 4. He turned back to Funu and Hinata. I hope to see you two there. Naruto turned to walk out of the building. Hey. Naruto turned to see Sasuke, Sakura, and Kiba glaring at him. Why didn't we get any invitations? Naruto smirked as he nonchalantly spoke. Because I hate you. The three faces faltered as Naruto walked out of the room and headed down the hallway. He ran through a set of hand seals. And he vanished in a swirl of paper. Outside of Konoha, Itsuki was heading towards Konoha, her father's royal guard behind her. She had insisted on moving to Konoha to be with her fiancé. Her father approved so long as she had her guards with her. She was carrying her Naginata. Most princesses were pampered. Spoiled. Okay, so was she, but her father downright refused to allow his daughter to be a pushover. He had trained her to be a fine warrior, and in Hai no Kuni, there was no person better with a Naginata than she was. She looked into her pouch and looked at the gift in it. She smiled. Today was the day she would officially promise herself to Naruto. Today she will officially be his fiancé. She sighed to herself as she realized that she would have to share him. It did not matter. She would always care for him. She wondered how the tenchurin flower was doing. He had shown it to her the last time they met and it was truly beautiful. She had immediately declared that when the two were old enough, they would marry. She looked up and saw the gates of Konoha. She picked up the pace as she headed towards the home of her fiancé. Meanwhile, Naruto suddenly appeared in a swirl of paper that quickly turned into chakra and went back into Naruto. He looked up at the sight before him. In front of him was the home he had made with his Mokuton. It was an ornate-looking building, it was completely made of wood, and it had a lovely scenery to it. It was a home fit for a daimyo. Or in Naruto's case the Hokage's son. Along with his girls. He walked up to the front gates and pushed open the door as he marveled at the interior. It was like walking into a palace. He walked up the nearby steps and headed to the back of the building. He opened the door. To reveal a large round area, tables were set up, food was steaming on the table, and there was a chakra-powered speaker system. He was about to go check out the rest of the place. Oh Naruto-kun. Naruto turned to see Kyuubi standing behind him in a partial view through kimono. Where have you been Naruto-kun? I was so lonely. She shook her shoulders as she allowed her kimono to slip a bit, causing a slight nosebleed in the blonde. Naruto's eyes widened when he heard that voice. He looked at Kyuubi who was giggling. He slowly turned around. And was shocked to see who was behind him. Naruto. What have I told you about being a pervert? The person who said this had long blue hair with a white origami flower in it. She was wearing a black cloak with red clouds on it. The two people next to her were both redheads. One had a pair of eyes that had a ripple pattern in it and had darker red hair that was long enough to braid. The other redhead had lighter orangish red hair and it was spiking up everywhere. Standing behind him were his extended family. Konan Uzumaki. His aunt, Nagato Rakuto. His uncle. And Yuhiko Kazama. One of his old teachers. His family. Chapter 7. Party and the plot. Naruto looked at Konan, Yuhiko, and Nagato and screamed, Auntie Konan, Uncle Nagato, Yuhiko-senpai. What are you doing here? Konan giggled as she wrapped her arm around Nagato's shoulders, making the Rinnegan user blush. Oh. We decided to come by. You know. Celebrate my nephew's graduation from the academy. She giggled as she walked up to Naruto and pinched his cheeks, and the rookie of the year too, Kakuzu will love this. At the mention of Kakuzu Naruto's eyes widened. Kakuzu Jaisen is here. That is. Naruto looked like he was about to shout in glee when he shivered. Wait. If Kakuzu is here. Then that means. His eyes widened in horror. Before he could open his mouth to speak. All hail Jashin-sama. Naruto turned towards the direction he heard Haiden's voice from and screamed as he ran towards the voice. Damn it Haiden, no worshipping Jashin in my kitchen. Naruto ran down a hallway as Yuhiko's face palmed. Oh boy. Why did we bring them again? Konan pouted as she looked at her brother-in-law. Nagato and Yuhiko were half-brothers. Both had different mothers, but the same father. Nagato's mother was a descendant of the Rikado Sennin, while Yuhiko's mother was not. Oh come on, how many times do I have to explain this? Zetsu wanted to introduce Naruto to his daughter, Deidara wanted to see whose art was better, Kakuzu wanted to try to win his money back, Kisame wanted to see who was better, a sword fighter or a bow staff user, and Itachi wants to know how his brother is doing. Yuhiko sighed in defeat. He still could not figure out how Naruto, at 9 years old, was capable of beating a 90-year-old shinobi at poker. 10 games in a row. Yeah. Everyone turned to see Kakuzu standing at the side, looking at his wallet. Since that game I have not been able to concentrate on gambling. And have lost my entire life savings. He sighed as he turned around, I will never know how he does it. Even though the kid's got spunk, he may still think Sasori Dono's art is the best, but he sure as hell knows how to make a bang. Deidara walked out of the hallway carrying several sticks of Naruto's homemade dynamite. These things are awesome, and the best part, they require no chakra. Deidara was grinning like a madman as he looked around for something to blow up. Nagato looked at Deidara. Deidara? What did we say before we got here? Deidara looked down and grumbled. No blowing up Naruto's stuff. Unless he gives permission. Nagato smiled as he fished in his pockets. But boy. Having a granola, he threw the granola, which Deidara proceeded to catch and eat. Fish. You are cooking fish. Come on, Naruto. Why fish? Everyone was sweat dropping at Kisame. Oh god. Did no one send the memo not to cook fish? Everyone immediately found either the floor or the ceiling quite interesting. Konan face palmed as she grumbled to herself. Then again, we did not even tell him we were coming in the first place. Damn it, Hayden, I just cleaned this room up. Go practice Jashin in the cellar. Or outside. Anywhere but in the important rooms of the house. Naruto kicked open the kitchen door as he was carrying a bloody mop. I swear I questioned that man's sanity. He looked up. Okay, the kitchen is clean. Oh, and Kisame. What was that about fish? Everyone snickered as Kisame began to growl in anger. Let it go, Kisame. Everyone turned to see Itachi walking out of the bathroom. It's not like he knew we were coming. He pulled out a box of Pocky and began to munch down on it. Hey Itachi. How's it going? Oh, by the way, your brother is an ass, tried to kill me yesterday with a fucking fireball. Itachi sighed as he rubbed his temples. Why am I not surprised, he always did take after our father. But anyways, when is the party starting? Itachi asked with excitement. After all, parties meant sake. And Itachi loved his sake. It will be starting at around 4. So that means we have 3 hours until Naruto leaves. Before he shouted, and Zetsu. Stay the hell out of my damn wine cellar. Naruto walked down the hall as Zetsu appeared out of the wall. Damn it. How does that bastard do it? It would be nice to use for infiltration. Or to avoid so we can get his rare sake. That too. Everyone's sweat dropped. Only Zetsu would be able to have a conversation with himself and not be admitted to a mental ward. With Naruto was walking through the halls of his mansion. He had looked at all the portraits in it. There were portraits of many various scenes of his training, his senseis. He had a few senseis, but Sasori was definitely the sensei he admired most. Oftentimes he would think of him as a father. Naruto turned down a hallway, and at the end of the hallway was an arched door, and it was locked incredibly tight. No one was getting in there unless they had the Mokuton, and no one without the Ranbanhata would be able to get out of the vault. He had made sure that it was safe from all intruders. On the walls of the hallway were various paintings and photos, ranging from photos of him with the Akatsuki to paintings of battle scenes. He had painted a good portion of them. And Saratobi had even offered to buy a few of them for a generous price. But he refused, saying that each painting was special. He walked down the hall and looked at each object on the wall. One was a picture of him making his first puppet. Sasori had taken the photograph, saying that a puppeteer's first puppet is always a memorable thing. Another was a painting of the Three Wolves Mountains in Tetsu no Kuni. They had stopped there to acquire a body for his third human puppet. The next painting was of a forest that had a beautiful design. Each one was a picture of events that he always remembered. He stopped in front of one. It was his favorite photo. The photo was of him, Sasori, Hayden, Kakuzu, Zetsu, Itachi, Kisame, Nagato, Yuhiko, Konan, Deidara, and Kyuubi all in one big photo. He sighed as he turned to the door. He went through hand seals, Mokuton, Fuinkai. The wood in front of the door was instantly covered in dozens of seals that lit up for a moment before dimming back to black. Naruto walked up to the door and pushed it open and walked inside. The doors were then covered in sharp paper that would regenerate so long as there was an available source of wood. And luckily, there was a massive source. Beyond the doors was a room that he had made after he finished the house. It was a room where he kept every memento he had. On the walls were several bow staffs that he had collected from various nations. There was a bookshelf that had books of every variety. As well as a few special triggers if he moved certain books. Near the center of the room there was a beautiful tree with a smooth surface and had lovely crimson leaves with white flowers. There was also a table covered in various origami he had made over the years. He walked up to what looked to be a scroll rack and opened his cloak, revealing 13 scrolls. There were 7 black scrolls. And 6 white scrolls. Each one had a symbol on it. Naruto placed each scroll with their corresponding scroll holders based on the symbols on it. In the center was the black scroll with a red scorpion. On its left side was a black scroll with a silver cloud, and the one on its right was a black scroll with a scorpion and an Oni mask. He traced the red scorpion, Sasori. I swear your legacy will be remembered forever. I promise you. He got up and walked to the side that had various bow staffs and pulled out his own from a seal on his wrist. He looked at it and traced the golden designs on the staff, Futon-sama. Your teachings allowed me to use this weapon. I will always honor it. He gently placed the staff on a shelf and bowed. He walked towards his bookshelf and traced the bindings of 3 books, Jikatsu Babit. Your teachings have made me a match for any seal master. I will never forget you. He gently bowed and sat in front of a small closet. He opened it to reveal a small altar with 3 pictures. One was of a red-haired man who looked no older than 20, another was of a white-haired man covered in wrinkles that had a creepy smile, but still a warm one. And the last one was of a black-haired man with scars across his face, gently smiling. Naruto bowed to the 3 photos, Sasori-sensei. Jikatsu Babbitt. Futen-sama. Before your ends you 3 made me who I am. I will not forget you 3. Nor will my future clan. I swear it. He happily smiled at the 3 photos, well. Time to party. He closed the doors and walked to his closet and looked inside, yeah. Time to party. He reached inside and grabbed its contents. 4 o'clock that night, Hinata, Funu, Yakumo, Mitsuki, Ino, Shikamaru, Choji, Shino, Ami, and a good portion of their classmates were all waiting in the training ground. They had gotten there according to what the invitation said. Now they were just waiting for Naruto. The 4 girls that wanted to claim Naruto were getting really edgy. Just as they were about to flip out, well. I see you all showed up. Everyone turned around to see Naruto in a tree. But everyone was shocked at his appearance. He was wearing a pair of brown cargo pants, a black muscle shirt, an armband around his left bicep, a pair of fingerless gloves, and a pair of shades. Mitsuki, Funu, Yakumo, and Hinata, along with the entire Naruto fan club, found him absolutely hot and were trying to keep themselves from jumping him. Oh, my freaking god. Look at those arms. Why the hell did he hide that? Was the thought running through the heads of all the girls. Naruto smiled, since you are all here. I think we can get this party started. Naruto sliced his thumb and ran through hand seals and then slammed his palm on the tree, reverse Kuchius. Compound. A massive puff of smoke washed over the entire group as a series of black lines covered the entire training ground. When the smoke finally cleared they were not in the training ground anymore. They were in a massive room with disco balls, lights, and a nearby snack bar. Naruto turned to the group, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get this party started. He snapped his fingers as the room was suddenly lit up with various lights and music began to play. Everyone screamed and began to run to places where they began to dance. Choji however slinked over to the snack bar. After an hour of partying Naruto jumped up on stage, alright everybody, we are now going to have the partner dance off. The best pair will receive the prize. Immediately the floors were held with several couples. Choji was still at the snack bar. When he suddenly felt someone tapping his shoulder. He turned and saw Ino giving him a devilish grin, hey. Wanna dance? Choji was not able to answer as Ino pulled him to the middle of the dance floor where she curled her finger in a come here motion. Naruto grinned at the 2 of his classmates and shouted, alright everybody. Introducing my friends. Akatsuki. Everyone cheered. Ever since Naruto explained the true motives of Akatsuki, the populace rather liked the group of S-rank criminals and they eventually became celebrated in Konoha. The stage was lit with fire as Zetsu, Deidara, Yahiko, and several instruments appeared on stage. Deidara was at the drums, Zetsu was at the guitar, and Yahiko was at the electric keyboard. Naruto jumped towards the microphone and spoke into it, and for our first song. Please enjoy. Closer by Inoue Joe. Start playing 4th Shippuden opening. Ino grabbed Choji and began to forcibly make him dance with her. Choji eventually began to dance to the movements, making Ino smile a bit. Choji got into the movements, and the 2 began to dominate the dance floor. At the very end of the song Choji lifted Ino and spun her around before he fell on his ass, Ino landing on his chest. Their lips crashed together. Everyone immediately stopped as they looked at the 2. Ino quickly got off of Choji who slowly pushed himself up and walked away, a forlorn expression on her face. Naruto saw the 2 and yelled out, hey, could someone take over for a minute? Kisame immediately came out and grabbed Mike and no heavy freaking metal Kisame. Kisame pouted and looked at the crowd. Our next song is Distance by Longshot Party. Start playing Distance by Longshot Party. Naruto walked up to Choji who grabbed a bottle of sake. Choji. I know we are old enough to drink. But don't you think you should enjoy the party? Choji looked down and then quickly downed the sake. How can I enjoy the party? Look at what I did, because I was so damn clumsy I made a fool out of Ino-chan. He grabbed his face in his palms and grunted, damn it. Why does this always happen to me? Naruto patted his big bone friend's back and spoke. Choji. Maybe if you told Ino how you feel then. Choji cut Naruto off. She will never feel the same. He groaned again, why did the girl I love have to be so amazing? Naruto was about to answer. What? Both Choji and Naruto turned around to see Ino standing there with her eyes wide and her mouth quivering. Choji went wide-eyed and was about to run when Naruto grabbed his shirt and slammed his ass back on the chair. Slightly cracking it, no Choji. You are going to sit down on this chair and explain your feelings to Ino. You are not going to run again. Am I clear? Naruto gave Choji a look that said, say yes or you will be in pain, to which Choji nodded. Naruto walked past Ino and went back to the party. Ino looked at Choji and walked over to the bench. See Choji. Is what you said true? Choji looked down and sighed. Yes Ino. I understand if you wouldn't want to be with me. After all. I am just a fat-assed excuse of Hoji did not get to finish as Ino stood and snapped at him. No. You are a sweet gentle guy that any girl should be honored to date. Choji looked surprised at Ino. He was not expecting her to say that. That was for sure. But Ino. Ino hugged Choji and spoke. Choji. I have liked you for so long. I only pretended to like Sasuke before to make Sakura confident. I slimmed down my figure to attract you Choji. Not Sasuke. You. She hugged him tighter as she rested her head on his chest. Please. Don't reject me. Choji looked at Ino in shock. Why would you like me of all people? Ino smiled as she nuzzled into his chest. Well. For one. You are a sweet guy who would do anything to protect his friends. And two. You don't care what other people say about you. Sure, you get angry when people call you fat, but you don't let it control your life. Well, I let go of Choji and pointed to her body. Which agreeable was a bit too thin to be normal, care too much about what people think of me. Choji smiled as he looked at Ino. Ino. I don't care how you look. You are an awesome confident girl. I have no idea why anyone would not want to date you. Choji looked down. Ino smiled and grabbed his face. And slammed her lips against his. Finally. Choji and Ino turned around to see their class looking at them. We were wondering when you two were going to get together. Choji and Ino were shocked. What? You think none of us noticed how Choji would look dreamily at Ino all the time and how Ino would giggle and blush when she watched Choji during lunch? The two genin blushed in embarrassment. Ami ran up to the two. Come on lovebirds, let's party. She dragged the two to the dance floor where everyone was cheering for them. Naruto chuckled off to the side. He knew that getting those two together would be a good idea. Oh Naruto-kun. Naruto slightly shivered as he heard two voices behind him. He turned around to see Hinata and Funu grinning lecherously at him. Hi girls. How do you like the party? Funu grinned as she walked right next to Naruto. Oh. She began to trace her finger down his jawline. I think the party is spectacular. She leaned closer to his ear and said huskily, but I can think of so many more pleasurable things. Naruto shivered. Causing Hinata to growl at Funu. That bitch. Kick her ass. Hinata pushed Funu aside. Oh yes Naruto-kun. This part is amazing. Why don't we discuss how great it is over a nice cup of sake? She grinned lecherously and afterwards we can have some real fun. Hinata leaned in closer while she gently moved her hands closer to his butt. Oh girls. The two girls turned around to see Conan standing in front of them. Might I ask what you are doing to my nephew? The girls blushed profusely, realizing they had just been caught trying to seduce the woman's nephew. We were The two could not form a coherent sentence, causing Conan to giggle. Oh don't worry. I have no problem with my nephew dating you both. She looked at Naruto with a demonic tint to her eyes and a creepy smile, but if you end up becoming a pervert, I will personally cut off your little friend. Naruto quickly nodded his head. Conan immediately went back to her cheery self. Good. Now. Why don't you go speak with Yakumo? She indicated to the young auburn-haired girl on the side. I heard that she liked painting. Why not show her what you have done? I will talk to the two young heiresses. You go talk with Yakumo. The smile on her face was sincere. But underneath it, one could see an underlying threat to it. Naruto wasted no time and walked over to Yakumo. Conan meanwhile turned to the two heiresses with a hard expression. Now. Let's get a few things straight about my nephew. Naruto walked up to Yakumo. Who was sitting with a drawing pad in her lap. Hey Yakumo, she looked up at him. I was wondering how you were doing. Yakumo smiled as she went back to her notepad. Oh. I'm doing fine. Naruto-kun. So she looked up at him. I heard you had a variety of paintings. Perhaps you could show me a few. Naruto chuckled. Sure. Why not, I was actually planning on showing you Hinata, Funu, and Mitsuki them later. But hey, what is a few hours early? Yakumo stood up and followed Naruto as they went to a door near the side of the dance hall. Mitsuki saw this and narrowed her eyes. What is she going to do to my Naruto-kun? She immediately downed her punch and walked towards the door. Naruto opened a door to a room and revealed what was inside. The entire wall was covered in one massive painting, and by the looks of it, the painting was still in process of being completed. Hell, the painting was only halfway done. Yakumo walked around the room, marveling at the sight. You like it? I started it as a sort of memorial to what has happened to me in my life. Yakumo looked to where she assumed the painting began and saw a massive nine-tailed fox being pulled into a set of intricate lines on a baby's belly. She looked at the rest of the painting and saw that it was indeed based on history, if the apparent age of Naruto in each painting was any indication. But she stopped when she saw what she assumed to be Naruto weeping over a dead carcass. And another carcass behind him. But it was incomplete. The carcass she could identify had crimson red hair and looked to be in his late teens to early 20s. Yakumo turned to Naruto. Naruto-kun. What is that? She indicated the painting. Naruto sighed as he answered. That is a painting of my now deceased sensei. Akasuna no Sasori. Who I saw as a father for a while. He walked up to a set of paints and pulled out a nearby canvas, but enough of the sad stuff. How about you give painting a shot? Naruto grinned as he presented the paints to her. She walked up to the canvas and sat down. Meanwhile, Mitsuki used a stealth skill she picked up from a few scrolls she had borrowed from the shinobi library to sneak into the room. She watched as Yakumo began to paint. Yakumo did simple brush strokes and then began to make complex shades and hues. After a few minutes a very beautiful picture was being formed. It was vaguely like a picture of the Hokage Tower. But there were light tinges of red where there should not be. Naruto got a closer look. And he suddenly began to feel dizzy. Yakumo grinned maliciously as she placed her hand on his cheek. Oh. Feeling weak, my dear? Her malicious smile gained a hint of lust in its form. Don't worry. It won't be for long. She turned towards Naruto, revealing a pair of glowing purple eyes and a set of fangs developing. Mitsuki saw this and jumped out as Yakumo performed a single hand sign, Ninpo. Karama Hijutsu. Mujanansa, Chains of Fantasia, a field of chakra washed over the room. Hitting all those in the room. Including Mitsuki. Then Naruto snapped his eyes open and looked around. He found himself in the middle of Konoha, but the village was barren, burning. There was blood trailing down the street. He quickly shot up and reached for his kunai pouch. But found nothing there. Oh, Naruto-kun. You won't be doing anything with those ninja tools of yours. Naruto turned to see Yakumo coming out of one of the burning buildings, then again. Why would you want to do that? She began to slip off her kimono. When you have me. She advanced for the blind, a lecherous grin gracing her features. And a demonic aura surrounding her. Elsewhere, Mitsuki shot up and looked around. She was back in the daimyo's palace. But. This was all wrong. The vines were covered in thorns, and the pond was crimson like blood. And the palace. Was ablaze. Now girl. We can't have you interfering in our fun with our dear Naruto-kun. Mitsuki turned to see glowing purple eyes and a set of razor-sharp teeth in a nearby shadow. After all. Once he becomes ours. All this indicates the state of the palace, and more. She'll become a reality. Mwahahahaha. The eyes disappeared in the shadows as the ground beneath Mitsuki began to rot and blacken. Chapter 8. The end of Plot 1. Naruto backed away as Yakumo began to strip in front of him, a sultry grin on her face. What's the matter, Naruto-kun? Isn't my body? She let her entire kimono fall. Revealing her naked figure to him, to your liking. Naruto got into a fighting stance. Yakumo, I'm warning you. Step back. Yakumo only giggled at his threat. Naruto moved to strike her. But found he could not move his arms. He looked down to find his arms had been grabbed by a series of chains. And behind him was a concrete wall. He was not getting out of this. Yakumo placed her finger on his chin. Naruto-kun. I am going to show you such pleasure. You will never want it to end. Yakumo grabbed the back of his head and forced his lips against hers. Naruto tried to move his head to avoid it. But he found himself compelled to continue kissing her. She grabbed his shirt and tore it off of his body and began to use her hands to rub his chest. Making Naruto groan in pleasure. Removing her lips from his, she whispered in his ear, now. For the fun part. She trailed her tongue from his cheekbone down to his jaw as she nibbled on his lip. But Mitsuki grabbed onto the ledge as the ground beneath her fell through. Looking down, she saw a pit filled to the brim with massive spikes covered in various serrations. Cursing to herself, she thought, oh perfect. Just perfect. Where the hell am I? She grabbed the ledge with her other hand and hoisted herself onto the ledge. Panting, she looked around. Her home was still on fire, and by the looks of it, everything else was on fire. Damn bitch. When I get my hands on her, I am going to kick her fucking ass. She reached to grab her weapon. But found it wasn't there. Fuck. Mitsuki growled as she looked around. Damn. There has got to be some way out of this. And if both Naruto and I are in this, then that means I should be able to find him. Mitsuki began to walk out towards the exit of the burning palace. If that bitch so much as hurts a single hair on my Naruto-kun's head, I am going to kick her ass. Back with Naruto, Yakumo continued to nibble on Naruto's lip as she snapped her fingers, causing Naruto's undergarments to disappear. Yakumo grinned as she began to reach down towards his now bare member. Ooh. Naruto-kun, it seems you got hard for you naughty boy. Naruto groaned as Yakumo began to stroke his member. Yakumo. Get the hell off me. Now. Yakumo giggled as she sped up the pace. Oh, don't tell me you don't like this. Naruto-kun. Yakumo stopped her stroking of his member and knelt down to it. If you don't, then maybe you will like this. Yakumo licked her lips and kissed the tip of Naruto's member. Naruto groaned in pleasure. Damn it. How the hell am I going to get out of here? This is not going to stop from a chakra pulse. I know that much about the Kurama bloodline. So Naruto's eyes widened. That's it. Naruto began to focus on his fingertips as he forced a certain sequence of chakra pulses to go through. This had better work. In Naruto's armory, one of the scrolls on Naruto's rack began to glow as the symbol on it began to light up. The symbol on the scroll was an Oni mask with a katana impaled through the forehead. Suddenly the scroll jumped off of the rack and rolled out, revealing a series of seals before a puff of smoke engulfed the room. Once the smoke cleared, it revealed a humanoid figure with heavy double-plated armor. It was also wearing a helmet with two curved horns on it, giving it the appearance of a demon. It also had a large fur coat that went back its ankles. The figure stood to reveal it was wearing a face mask very similar to an aim breather. On its sides were 4 black katanas still sheathed. If one looked closely, they could see a symbol of Tetsu no Kuni. This was Naruto's third human puppet. Hattori. Hattori stood stock still until a blue seal glowed on the back of its neck and the glow continued down the entire length of the Hitachigatsu body. Suddenly the puppet looked at its hands and then snapped its fingers. A metallic voice very similar to Naruto's came out of the mask. "Alright. Now, time to get to the boss." The puppet ran out of the room. While the seal on its neck began to disintegrate. Meanwhile, at the party, the academy graduates were all enjoying the songs being played on the stereo. While all the Akatsuki members continued to dance on the floor. Madara was breakdancing while Kisame was headbanging to the songs. Zetsu was off to the side enjoying some punch and shrimp with a few of the genin hopefuls. Haiden was doing an air guitar on the snack table while yelling, "Rock on for Jashin-sama." Kakuzu was sitting in a chair, slumped over from drinking a case of sake. Konan was dancing with Nagato as Yahiko sat down. Itachi, however, was sitting in a corner. At first glance, nobody would think it was Itachi for one very important reason. He was hanged as an entirely different person. He had long blonde hair that was tied back into a ponytail, his eyes were jade green, and his clothes consisted of a tracksuit with an open red vest, along with a pair of combat boots. The Akatsuki may now be well liked in Konoha, but Itachi was still considered a missing nin. Itachi sighed as he thought to himself, why the hell can't Sandaime-sama just tell everyone what happened with the Uchiha clan? I want to walk in my home village again. Maybe get a date as myself for once. And not one of those stupid fangirls. Erg. Itachi was about to get up and get a drink. When he felt a sudden influx of chakra. He looked around to see which direction the chakra was coming from. It was coming from the other side of the house. And by the chakra's movements and the feel. It was moving somewhere else. What confused him was the fact that it felt like Naruto's. But for some reason, it seemed to steadily be growing weaker, odd. Naruto's chakra usually either stays the same size or grows larger. Even with high ranking it is hard for him to lose any chakra. Back in the Genjutsu, Naruto groaned as he thought to himself, Hattori had better get here soon. Ikumo was now sucking on his member after she had removed all of his lower clothing. She released his member with a resounding pop before she looked at Naruto with lust. Now. For the main course. She twirled her fingers as the branches holding Naruto forced Naruto onto his back. Ikumo licked her lips as she climbed up on top of him. Don't worry about Naruto-kun. This is going to feel really good. She looked back towards his stiff member and positioned her entrance in front of it. She began to slowly bring herself down as she gently spread the folds of her lower lips. Oh. Yes. Either Yakumo was a masochist or she was actually feeling pleasure. She finally simply let Naruto's dick slide inside her. Ahhh, she panted as she began to rock back and forth. Oh yes, she grasped her hair as she yelled. Oh yes. Ooh fuck him Naruto. Yes. Naruto was trying as hard as he could to avoid being released. And he was having a really hard time with that. God damn it, Hattori got over here now. With Mitsuki slashed down a bunch of trees as she heard moans in the forest. Damn it. That sounds like Naruto-kun. If that bitch tries anything you'll what? Mitsuki turned around. And her eyes widened. Standing behind her was a creature with long black horn-like protrusions, massive fangs, and dark skin. But what confused her was the fact it was wearing the same clothes Yakumo was wearing. Mitsuki got into a fighting stance and snarled, "Who the hell are you?" The demon giggled in a demonic tone, "I am Ido. The manifestation of Yakumo's powers. And you must be Mitsuki. Niece of Orochimaru." Mitsuki's eyes widened when Ido said who she was. How do you know that?" Ido scoffed as it looked at Mitsuki, "Oh please. Do you honestly think I would strike against one of my barriers to ultimate power? Without first discovering everything I can about my competition. I took control of Yakumo several times and looked everywhere for anything that I could use against you, Hinata, and Funu. And I must say I found some juicy information." Ido began to walk around Mitsuki of the royal house of the Daimyos of Hai no Kuni. Daughter to Sora, Daimyo of Hai no Kuni. And his beloved wife Natara and niece to Snake Sanin, an S-rank criminal. Orochimaru. Hinata Hyuga, daughter to Hiashi Hyuga and Hana Hyuga. Out of the entire Hyuga family, she has shown the lowest possible skills in their taijutsu form. And of course. Funu Uchiha, the last living descendant of Madara Uchiha. I know everything on record about you three. Ido began to chuckle as it looked at Mitsuki, who began to smirk. On record, huh? Well, I got news for you. Mitsuki placed her hands together in front of her as her eyes turned even more snake-like than before. Not even a fourth of my abilities are on record. Mitsuki went into a stance and covered her right eye as she stared at Ido with her left. The eye twisted until it was so snake-like. One would think it was torn from a snake's eye socket. Osur's Ikin, Fear's glance. Ido was frozen in place as the world around it began to darken and twist like water in a maelstrom. What is this place? Mitsuki walked towards Ido, her hands still covering her right eye. This is sort of like a bloodline in my family. Our left eyes allow us to concentrate so much on killing intent onto a person that it can make one feel as if they are an A. But the amazing thing is, it is pure killing intent. When the illusion starts, it will not stop until the person's mind shuts down from fear, they die. Or somehow escape. Even after they escape, it will take several minutes for the effects to wear off. Mitsuki wrapped her free hand around Ido's neck. This technique is why our family was called the Glaring Snakes. Now die. Mitsuki tightened the grip on Ido's throat. Snap. Until the demonic spirit vanished. Mitsuki sighed. Damn. That was a close call. That's it, you little bitch. Mitsuki's eyes widened as she heard a foul demonic voice surrounding her. I was going to let you live after I had made Naruto mine and had taken the power of the Kyuubi to burn Konoha on the ground. But I am going to make you suffer. The ground began to shake and tear as hundreds of black spikes began to shoot out of the ground. Back with Naruto and Yakumo. Yakumo had switched positions and was now riding him backwards. Oh god, that feels so good. Oh yes. Oh, just a bit further. And you are mine. Naruto groaned as he felt a bit of the coom he had been holding and slip out. No way. No fucking way am I going to coom from being raped. Yakumo began to fondle her breasts. Yes. Coom inside me. Give it to me. Give me your seed. Give me your coom. Yakumo sped up her efforts as she tried to get Naruto's ejaculation. No. 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 Naruto was about ready to lose his mind from holding in his release for so long. Outside, Hattori kicked down the doors to the room where Naruto had the massive painting. Hattori looked around until the puppet's eyes landed on three people on the ground, their eyes glazed over as if they were an A. Hattori looked at the deteriorating seal on the back of its neck. Shit. Only 2 minutes left. The puppet pulled out its katana and brought it down on the three of them. Mitsuki waited for the spikes to impale her, but yelped in pain as she felt a stabbing pain in her leg. She then disappeared in a black wisp. Naruto could not hold it anymore. He was about to be released when he screamed in pain as he too disappeared in a black wisp. Ikumo looked confused until she yelped in pain as she also disappeared in a black wisp. Again. Outside, Naruto shot up Mitsuki and Yakumo. Naruto looked at Hattori, who was now standing at a salute. Boss. I have completed the task you have set before me, I request that. Bam. Naruto kicked Hattori so hard in the face that the puppet was sent to the other side of the room. Idiot, I said break you ass out of the genjutsu. Not try to cut off our legs. Hattori stood up. Sorry boss. Anyways, my seal has almost completely deteriorated, so I need to shut down and recharge. Could you possibly do that? Naruto sighed as he walked over to Hattori with a limp in his steps. He touched the seal on the back of his head, then let the puppet fall into his arms. I really have to increase the seal's efficiency. I can't keep recharging these guys every 10 minutes. Naruto pulled out a pen and then stabbed his finger. Mitsuki cringed while Yakumo was blinking as she looked around. What happened? Mitsuki looked at Yakumo and snarled, you little bitch. You trapped Naruto and what the hell was that thing in your damn head? Yakumo squinted her eyes and tilted her head. Ido. What is going on? Mitsuki's eyes widened. You mean? You don't know. Yakumo shook her head. You don't remember trying to. Hey, would the two of you keep it down for a bit? If I get distracted for even a minute I could screw up this seal, and believe me it is a pain in the ass to fix this thing. The two girls shut up as they allowed Naruto to fix the seal. Naruto used his blood and finished the final segment. Good. Now for the final touch. Naruto began to charge a bit of chakra into the seal, making the seal glow red and then back to blue. He sighed as he wiped his forehead. Alright then. I am beat. Thump. Naruto fell over in an instant and began to sleep as Hattori also fell on top of him. Mitsuki and Yakumo looked at each other. Let's get him back to his room. They nodded to each other as they each grabbed either Naruto or the puppet and began to drag him through the house towards his living quarters. Time skip. The next day Naruto had woken up and had asked Yakumo what had happened. Apparently, she had a demonic spirit living inside of her. Naruto had managed to get some details on the spirit and had managed to seal it up. Since then he had been working on his puppets, bow staff techniques, and his sealing skills. It was now the day that they would officially meet their teams and senseis. Naruto kneeled in front of the altar he had in his room and lit some scented oils for each picture. I will see you later. My senseis. Naruto got up and grabbed his scroll case and placed it inside his cloak. He grabbed his favorite bow staff and checked over the seals on his wrists. Okay. Time to get ready. Naruto vanished via Shunshin and headed towards the academy. Hinata and Funu were glaring at each other while Kiba was trying to ask Hinata for a date. Sasuke was brooding while trying to ignore Sakura's incredulous yapping. Ino, Ami, Choji, Shikamaru, Shino. And the rest of the class backed away from the considered danger zone. Suddenly a large burst of wind sent everyone dodging flying papers as Naruto appeared in the room. Hinata and Funu were ogling his new look. Naruto was wearing a tattered black cloak with red clouds on it. On the inside of the cloak were 13 scrolls with various symbols on each one. On Naruto's back was an ornate golden bow staff with dragon-like designs flowing up the sides. Naruto also wore a ring on his left thumb with a kanji for jewel in it. Naruto looked at everyone and snorted, "What? Nobody ever seen Shunshin before." Everyone face faulted as they watched Naruto sit in between Hinata and Funu. Kiba, Sasuke, and Sakura were having their own thoughts on the blonde. How dare the Dun have power that I deserve? I am an Uchiha, an elite. His power should be mine. That Baka is trying to upstage Sasuke-kun to gain my attention. How dare that Bakemono? That bastard orphan stole Hinata-chan from me. I will make him pay and claim Hinata for my own. Boom, the doors slammed open, revealing Kyuubi standing there in an interesting set of clothes. Oh Naruto-sama. You forgot your bento again. Kyuubi was wearing a tattered pair of black women's hakama with red clouds on it. Her upper shirt consisted of a woman's skin-tight woman's jacket that cut off just below her breasts, providing a shred of decency. On her left pinky finger she wore a ring with the kanji for void. Sasuke looked at Kyuubi, she is perfect. With her I can restore my clan. Sakura glared at Kyuubi, that hussy better stay away from my Sasuke-kun. Kiba drooled as he looked over her figure, okay. Scratch plan A, humiliate Naruto. And get Hinata and the babe. Naruto looked at Kyuubi and sighed, Kyu-chan. What have I told you about wearing such a provocative outfit in public? Kyuubi touched her fingers together much like a certain heiress would and looked thoughtful, Only do it while you are around. Naruto slapped his forehead, I gave up. Just try to avoid bringing too much attention to yourself. Kyuubi did a mock salute, yes sir. Naruto sat down as Kyuubi chose to sit next to Hinata. Time skip. 3 hours later, all the other groups had already been picked up by their senseis and the only ones left were Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, Kiba. And Kyuubi, who said that she is not leaving her Naruto-sama. Sasuke walked over to Kyuubi. Why would you want to be with Adobe? Who has no clan name when you can be with an elite Uchiha like me? Kyuubi got into a thoughtful pose as she began to name off reasons. He is kind, sweet. I think he is cute. I question your sexuality. Shall I continue? Sasuke got pissed off and swung his fist at her. How dare you deny me, you bitch. Sasuke was about to strike Kyuubi when the vixen raised a single finger and stopped his punch. I suggest you understand your opponent before you fight them. Her eyes glowed crimson as a demonic aura surrounded her, it could get you killed. Sasuke jumped back and trembled, she is strong. I must have her. And the council will give her to me. Kiba sauntered over to her, hey baby. Sorry you have to be with that dead last loser right there. Hey, he reached towards her, how about you come home with me so we can have some fun? Kyuubi turned to Kiba and smirked. Before she delivered a punch to his chest that sent him to the other side of the room, try to touch me again. And I will rip your arms off and then shove them up your ass. She said it in such a sweetly sick voice it scared everyone there. Naruto shook his head as he looked at her, Kyu-chan. Must you cause conflict? Kyuubi grinned as she latched onto Naruto, yep. It's what I do. The doors to the room opened as 2 men walked in. One had gravity-defying silver hair, had his headband covering one of his eyes, and had a face mask on. He had standard jounin attire and was carrying around an orange book with the words, Icha Paradise on it. The other one had spiky brown hair, a metal face plate that outlined his face and a pale complexion. He also had standard jounin attire. The white-haired man put his book away, By my first impression of you. You're all a thwack. Crunch. Crack. The man stopped dead in his tracks as 3 tree roots shot out of the ground and impaled the wall next to his head. Between his legs. And right next to his side. While 3 more tree roots impaled similar areas with the other jonin. Naruto had his hand raised and snarled, your first impression. How about I tell you my first impression? You two are pathetic excuses of jonin who have no perception of the word time and are likely to get us killed on the first mission. I will meet the rest of you on the roof. The roots receded as Naruto and Kyuubi sunshine to the roof. The 2 jonin swallowed as they looked at the others, let's do what he said. The 3 genin nodded. Knowing that currently, disobeying Naruto was a hazard to their health. Chapter 9. Introductions, Relations, and Genin Test. Naruto whistled a tune as he waited for his new team to get to the roof. He decided to pass the time by reviewing his seals. Opening his scroll, he read through one of the several seals he had created. Shoji Fuin, combination of storage seal, chakra seal, and cage bunshin. The seal allows one to seal a cage bunshin inside of an object and allow them to take full control of said object. Works best in conjunction with battle puppets. Naruto had developed the seal because his puppet skills were limited in their usage due to his lack of proper chakra control, and the seal allowed his cage bunshin to use a full range of motion inside the puppets, making them extremely dangerous. Naruto continued reading, but began to twitch as he felt something soft and squishy press against the back of his head. Kyuubi. What are you doing? Kyuubi grinned and jumped. Yay, Naruto-sama knew it was me. Naruto sighed as he looked at Kyuubi. You are the only person I know who will do something like that. Kyuubi pouted as she sat next to Naruto. You are no fun, Naruto-sama. Naruto sighed at Kyuubi's attitude. Oh, there you two are. Naruto looked up to see the white-haired Jonin, the black-haired Jonin, and his three teammates walk out of the building. You really shouldn't go ahead with your senses. Naruto looked at the white-haired man. You shouldn't be 3 hours late to a meeting. It could get both you and your teammates killed. The Cyclops Jonin nodded his head. Touché. Anyways. He sat down on a ledge. How about we introduce ourselves? Sakura looked at the white-haired Jonin. Up. Sensei, what do you mean? Naruto groaned as he looked at the pink-haired Banshee. Honestly, if you are so stupid you need to ask, then why did you join the shinobi program? Sakura looked at Naruto. Shut up, you baka. She swung her fist and was about to punch Naruto when he grabbed her by the wrist. Last I checked, the assault of a fellow shinobi is treason. Sakura glared at Naruto and pulled back her fist, sitting down with a noticeable HMPH. Kakashi gave them an eye smile. Okay, I guess I will go first. I'm Kakashi Haddock. Things I like and things I hate. I don't feel like telling you that. My dreams for the future. Never really thought about it. As for my hobbies. I have lots of hobbies. The group sweat dropped as they looked at him. All we learned was his name. The other Jonin sighed and looked at the four genin. Okay, I will go next. My name is Yamato. I like walnuts and a bit of botany. I dislike oily foods, Orochimaru, and traitors. My dreams for the future are to lead my team to great heights. My hobbies are reading books and architecture. Kakashi's eyes smile. Alright then. Dog boy, you go next. Kiba glared at Kakashi, then sat back. My name is Kiba Inuzuka. I like Akamaru, said Puppy barked happily. Steak, and Hinata-chan, he said whilst glaring at Naruto. I dislike anything chewy, and Naruto. Naruto shrugged his shoulders at this. My hobbies are taking Akamaru for walks, and my dream is to get Hinata-chan to fall for me. Naruto rolled his eyes. Yeah, like that is going to happen. Kakashi nodded his head. Very good, Kiba. Now, you next, Pinky. Sakura glared at Kakashi. My name is Sakura Haruno. I like blushes while looking at Sasuke. My hobbies. Blush looking at Sasuke, dreams for the future. Giggles as she stares at Sasuke, dislikes. Naruto baka. Naruto looked at Sakura, asking me if I care. Kakashi stopped the two before they could get into an all-out argument. Alright already. Okay, doom and gloom, your turn. Sasuke snorted. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I hate a lot of things and like very little, and I have no hobbies. My ambition is to revive the Uchiha clan, he said while looking at Kyuubi, and to kill a certain man. Naruto noticed Sasuke look at Kyuubi when he mentioned reviving his clan. Not on my watch, asshole. Kakashi's eyes smiled. Very good, Sasuke. Your last, blondie. Naruto looked at Kakashi and sat up. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I like ramen, Mitsuki-chan, Hinata-chan, Funu-chan, Oji-san, and gardening. I dislike arrogant pricks, stupid fangirls, and moronic perverts. My hobbies include training, studying new types of plant life, and painting. My dreams for the future, restore my clan, and become Hokage. Kakashi's eyes smile. Alright then. I want the four of you to meet at training ground 7 tomorrow. And don't eat breakfast, or you'll throw up. The two Jonin disappeared via Shunshin. Naruto got up and was about to leave. Hey Naruto. Said Blonde turned to see Sasuke glaring at him. What do you want, Uchiha? Sasuke looked at Naruto. And glanced at Kyuubi before he turned to look at Naruto again. That woman. Give her to me. Naruto snarled as he reached for his bow staff. And just why the hell should I? Sasuke snorted as he pointed to himself. Because I am an elite Uchiha. She would be perfect for repopulating my clan dobe. Naruto released a light bit of killing intent as he placed himself in front of Kyuubi. It will be a cold day in hell before I let you get your hands on her spoiled little shit stain. Sasuke began to perform hand seals, then I will just have to make you give her to me. Sasuke was halfway through the hand seals when his hands were wrapped up with trierts. Naruto held up his arm and transformed it into a sharp blade made of paper. Really? I wonder how you will accomplish that without. Naruto walked forward, intent on cutting off Sasuke's hands. Naruto-sama, but he stopped and turned towards Kyuubi. We don't have time for this. Because of that idiotic sensei of ours showing up 3 hours late, we are already running late for our appointment with Tsunade. Naruto sighed as he allowed his arm to return to normal. Alright. Damn. The two began to walk away, hey. But turned as they heard the banshee scream, let Sasuke come out of these tree roots. Naruto looked at Kyuubi. Then grinned as he turned toward Sakura, I am sure the almighty Uchiha elite can get out of that by himself. Later. The two vanished in a shunshin, while Sakura began to desperately try to free her beloved Sasuke-kun. Hospital. Naruto and Kyuubi appeared in front of the hospital, wondering if the results were in. Tsunade had gone through extensive amounts of studying to see how Naruto was related to her, for all she knew, he could have been a distant relative of one of the other Senju branches. The DNA she had used in the original tests showed he was pretty close in relation. But the DNA had deteriorated, so the results were partially corrupt. A fresh DNA sample would serve to provide much better results. The two walked inside and headed to the front desk. Hello, the receptionist looked and saw Naruto and Kyuubi looking at her. We are here for an appointment with Tsunade-sama. The woman looked at the clipboard and scanned its contents. She is in room 231. Go down the hall, up the stairs, and take a right. It should be on the left-hand side. Naruto and Kyuubi bowed, thank you miss. Come on. Naruto and Kyuubi walked towards the place she had indicated, while a certain Sannin was going nuts. But Tsunade kept staring at the documents before her. She just could not believe it, she just couldn't fucking believe it. How could she have blind to something like this for so long? Laying before her were hers, Nawaki's, and several other birth certificates, including Naruto and Minato. Along with that were the DNA samples and coding that had managed to be preserved. Once she had tested them, she was absolutely shocked with the results. The door opened as Naruto and Kyuubi walked through. Hello Tsunade-sama, you called for us. Tsunade turned to look at the two. Ah. Naruto, so glad you could come. Could the two of you please take a seat? The two nodded their heads and sat down on a nearby stool. Tsunade passed each of them a bottle of sake as she sat on the table. Trust me, you are going to need those. Naruto and Kyuubi nodded their heads as he got ready to uncork the tops. Okay. Where to begin? Well. I was curious as to how close of a relation you were to Naruto, so I took the liberty of doing some DNA tests, but what I found weird was that your Y chromosome perfectly matched the DNA of my brother Nawaki. Now. I found this to be incredibly weird since you got your Y chromosome from Minato. So I did a bit more digging. And I found that she passed over a few documents. Those are forms stating that the two twin sons of my parents were to be separated upon their divorce. I grew up with Nawaki and my father. But I never even knew the other twin existed. So I looked into the background of my mother and found her maiden name. Naruto and Kyuubi leaned in closer as Tsunade took in a deep breath. Her maiden name was Namikaze. Naruto and Kyuubi were about to uncork the tops of the sake bottles. But Tsunade stopped them. Hold on. There is more. The two reluctantly removed their hands away from the corks as Tsunade continued, anyways. I dug further and found that my mother had dropped off a baby at the local orphanage. I found that the child had kept my mother's maiden name. The baby was Minato Namikaze. Your father. Was my baby brother. Naruto uncorked the top of the sake bottle and guzzled it down as quickly as he could. He then placed the cork back on the top and looked at Tsunade, so you are my aunt. Tsunade grinned, pretty much. Tsunade did a classic Naruto grin as she scratched the back of her head. Thump. But opened them when she heard the telltale sound of a body hitting the floor. She looked down to see Naruto on the floor, having fainted from shock. Well. That was expected. Next day, Naruto walked up to the training ground, wearing the same outfit he had worn the day before. Once he entered the clearing he saw Sasuke, Sakura, and Kiba sleeping at the foot of one of the nearby trees. He sighed as he looked at them, obviously they were too stupid to eat breakfast before they came here. Naruto walked over to a tree and sat on the branch as he waited for their sensei. 20 minutes later Naruto was beginning to lose his patience, neither one of their senseis had even shown up. He was about to jump off the tree and destroy the field when they finally showed up. Where the fuck are you two? Naruto's shouted question ended up waking up the three other genin. Kakashi smirked, well. We got lost on the road of life. Naruto jumped off the tree and leaned against the trunk. You can't get lost on a road that only goes one way, you damned moron. Kakashi sighed, alright then. Now. On to the real genin test. The explanation is the same as in canon, but with 3 bells instead of 2. Alright. Go. Immediately, Kiba, Sasuke, and Sakura scattered, leaving Yamato and Kakashi. And Naruto. Naruto had indeed stayed behind and was staring down the two jonin. Kakashi's eyes smile, you know. You are a bit odd. Naruto snorted as he reached towards his pouch, this coming from a jonin with no perception of time. Kakashi turned towards Yamato, Yamato, I will take care of this. Hold on to the bells please. Kakashi handed Yamato the bells, who then quickly jumped away. Naruto looked at Kakashi. Afraid I might actually get the bells. Kakashi shrugged his shoulders, no. I am more worried about the Uchiha getting them, he is the only one who shows enough talent to do so anyways. Naruto's eyes narrowed, typical Uchiha worshipper. Naruto snapped out 2 scrolls. One with a cracked Uchiha clan crest and another with an Oni mask with a katana impaled through the forehead, always the arrogant ones. Naruto threw the scrolls in the air and performed a single hand sign, Kai. The 2 scrolls were covered in smoke clouds as Naruto suddenly adjusted his fingers into odd shapes. 2 figures finally revealed themselves. One was the samurai Naruto used to free himself, Mitsuki and Yakumo from Deus. The other one was a new one. He had black hair that was partially spiky as well as lightly curled. He had a single Sharingan eye on his left side while the other side had bandages covering it. His entire right side was covered in a tattered black cloak. He was wearing Konoha Anbu garb. On his forehead was a headband, but instead of a village symbol, it had a white flower with a red demon eye in the center. Kakashi's own eyes widened when he saw the figure. He had worked with that very same person when he was in Anbu Black Ops, SH Shisui. Uchiha. Naruto nodded his head, yep, the one and only Shunshin no Shisui. My very first Hitakigutsu. Kakashi's eyes widened, human. Puppet. Naruto nodded again, that's right. Although he looked at Shisui, I had to do quite a few modifications to him. Kakashi narrowed his eyes. What do you mean modifications? Naruto grinned as he adjusted his fingers, you will find out. If you can provide a challenge. Kakashi reached towards his pouch and clicked it open, perhaps. He pulled out the same orange book from the day before, but. How about I let you make the first move? The blonde shrugged his shoulders, okay he suddenly vanished into thin air as if he was never there to begin with. What? Kakashi shouted as he looked around. Naruto had been here a minute ago. So where, the bells? How could he be so stupid? Naruto was heading after Yamato. Kakashi quickly turned towards the direction he felt Yamato's chakra and quickly ran into the forest. Yamato suddenly felt Naruto's chakra signature disappear, what? Where did he go? He then felt Kakashi's chakra begin to come closer, what is going on? Ibaku Satsu Yamato looked down to see several tree roots shooting up towards him. And all of them were covered in sharp spikes. Shidi performed a series of hand seals, Mizu Shunshin as the roots began to wrap around him, he vanished in a swirl of water. He appeared on the other side of a clearing, panting from the sudden chakra influx, where the hell did that come from? Yamato began to look around, trying to sense a chakra signature. When he suddenly heard clapping coming from behind. He turned around to see Naruto standing there with his 2 human puppets, wow. And here I thought I was the only Mokuton user in Konoha, yet here we have another Mokuton user. I got the luck of the draw having someone like you as my sensei. Yamato stepped back, when I was told I would be given a surprise for this position, I did not expect something like this. Naruto shrugged his shoulders, expecting the unexpected from my dear friend. Now Naruto leaned back as he placed his fingers in a ram sign, shall we begin? The 2 puppets stood up straight as a seal on the back of each of their necks glowed. The same glow went down the entire lengths of each of the puppets' bodies. They looked around. Then at each other. Shisui spoke up, wow. This feels much better than the old seals. Hattori agreed, yep, man. Applying those preservation and replenishing seals was nothing short of genius. Yamato stared at the 2 puppets, how the hell did you get those 2 to come to life? Naruto smirked, the wonders of Fuinjutsu. Let's leave it at that. Shisui, Hattori. The 2 puppets looked at Naruto, yes boss. Naruto grinned as he raised a finger. Then pointed at the trees behind him, you 2 get the Cyclops. I will deal with Yamato. The 2 nodded and jumped into the trees. While Naruto turned towards Yamato, so, you ready? The former Anbu operative lowered himself into a fighting stance, of course I am ready. But Kakashi, the cycloptic ninja jumped through the trees, following Yamato's chakra signature. He could not believe he got suckered by a genin. He suddenly felt an influx of chakra and had to jump out of the way as a series of diagonal slashes cut through the trees. He kept jumping from tree to tree as they were constantly cut down by the slashes. Finally he landed in a clear zone and turned towards the direction the chakra slices were coming from. 2 figures jumped out of the cloud caused by the falling debris and landed in a kneeling position. As they stood up, the cloud began to dissipate, revealing them to be Hattori and Shisui. Kakashi's eyes widened, how? You 2 are just PP puppets. Hattori snorted, just puppets. I resent that remark. We are Hitakigutsu. As for your question. Fuinjutsu. Hattori grabbed 2 of his katanas and threw them in the air, then quickly grabbed his other 2 blades and chucked them into the air right into the other 2 katanas. Kakashi watched as the katanas started spinning downwards. But his eyes narrowed as he saw light travel down the edge of the blade. Hattori performed a single hand sign, Wanjetsu Kair. As if by command, a crescent-shaped blade of energy came flying out of the katanas and towards Kakashi. The Cyclops had a single thought on his mind, oh shit, The ground was torn apart as the four chakra constructs tore away the landscape, sending piles of dust and debris everywhere. Shisui sighed as he looked at Hattori, you do remember we have a limited chakra. Right. Hattori looked at Shisui, yes, but now when we run out of chakra we go into stasis instead of completely being obliterated. Wow, the two Hitakigutsu snapped around to see Kakashi standing on a pile of rubble. I have to say I am impressed. Very good for a senju, but I bet Sasuke could do better. Shisui looked at Kakashi. And snorted, alright then he grabbed his cloak and mask, time to take this up a notch. He tore off his cloak, revealing his right side. Kakashi's eyebrow rose as he looked at what had become of the former Anbu. His left arm had been replaced with a giant black crab-like claw, with the inside covered in numerous seals. His right eye had a scope in place of a normal eye. And the Sharingan in his left eye was spinning at a constant rate. Shisui looked at Kakashi and raised his pincer. He snapped it open and said, Suiton. Ashi Taihu, a blast came right out of the pincer and headed towards Kakashi. They said Jonin jumped out of the way and watched as the blast tore through the trees. And noticed a light mist, highly pressurized water. He turned towards the two human puppets, looks like they have some specialties. Hattori grabbed his katana and looked at Kakashi. Are you ready for Haddock? Kakashi lowered himself into a taijutsu stance, I am not a Jonin for nothing you know. Hattori tightened his stance, alright then. Hattori charged at Kakashi as Shisui fired off more pressure blasts. Chapter 10. Final Test and Reunions. Kakashi dodged out of the way of Shisui's pressure blasts and jumped out of the way of Hattori's slashes. The samurai spun on his heel and sent a horizontal slash at Kakashi. The Cyclops Jonin flipped backwards in time to avoid the slash and spun on his palm, sending a heel kick at the human puppet. Hattori raised his swords across him and blocked the incoming strikes, then slashed at Kakashi again, this time with a chakra-infused slash. The Jonin jumped out of the way in time to avoid being cut to ribbons and attempted to counterattack. Suiton. Rensei Kadu. Kakashi snapped his head around and saw a spiral drill of water shoot out of Shisui's claw. The drill spun faster and faster, sending wisps of water out as it tore through the air. Kakashi quickly ran through hand seals and shouted, Tsuruidan no Jutsu. The nearby pond exploded as a dragon made of water shot out towards the incoming drill. The two attacks clashed with a splash, twisting and crashing into each other, sending particles upon particles of water everywhere as they tried to gain the upper hand. Kakashi was so focused on his technique that he did not notice Hattori jump behind him until the last second. He dove out of the way and released his, allowing the drill to gain the upper hand and crash into Kakashi's path. He crossed his arms across his chest and managed to avoid the flying rocks and stone. Hattori landed next to Shisui and sheathed his blades, ready Shisui. Shisui turned towards Hattori and nodded, ready Hattori. Hattori grinned as he reached into a pouch on his side and took out an odd-looking object. It had two hollow parts that were in the shape of the hilt of each of his blades, and it had a chain attached at the bottom. There were also what appeared to be polarized attraction seals placed on its sides. Hattori slipped them onto the two katanas on his right side. There was a clicking sound just before Hattori pulled out his two katanas. The object that he had placed on their hilts connected the two at the hilt and then forced the bottoms of their hilts to connect with each other, creating a double-bladed sword. Hattori spun the blade in one hand. Then gripped the combined hilt as he charged chakra through it, Joujin Kair. The chakra shaped around the sword as he swung it, sending a barrage of crescent-shaped chakra slashes at Kakashi. Shisui held up his claw and forced it to widen at 180. A seal in the joint of the claw glowed brightly as the Uchiha human puppet spoke, Bakuretsu Gajutsume. An explosion of water erupted from the claw and formed into a larger version of said claw. Shisui jumped to Kakashi and raised the claw back before he shot it towards Jonin. Kakashi reacted quickly and performed hand signs, Doten. Iwakabe, a wall of stone erected itself and stopped the incoming strikes. The resulting explosion caused by the blocked attacks created a cloud cover that blocked out all vision in the area. Hattori and Shisui got ready for a counterattack, unaware of the shadowy figure behind them. Naruto vs Yamato. Naruto and Yamato charged at each other as wood shot from the ground around them. Yamato created a spear out of wood, while Naruto pulled out his own bow staff and rode on one of the roots that were heading towards Yamato. The two clashed weapons, making Yamato's staff split from the sheer force behind Naruto's staff. Yamato looked at the staff and turned towards Naruto, nice staff. Where did you get it? Naruto smirked as he applied more pressure, making Yamato's staff snap in two. He swung the ornate staff at his fellow Mokuton user, making him jump back. Yamato landed on the ground and forced another wooden staff to grow. Naruto spun his staff around, I got this staff from my sensei. Yamato raised an eyebrow as he scratched his head. I was unaware that Akasuna no Sasori knew how to perform Bijutsu. Naruto grinned. Before he suddenly vanished. Yamato spun around and blocked a strike from Naruto, who was chuckling lightly, whoever said I got it from Sasori sensei. He kicked Yamato in the chest, making the wood using Anbu operative cringe as he blocked another strike from Naruto. Naruto suddenly jumped into the air and threw 3 kunai at Yamato, who ducked out of the way, making them fly into the trees. Naruto grinned as he sealed up his staff, perfect. He ran through hand seals and shouted, Mokuten. Dajirin no Jutsu. Naruto punched his arm forward, sending thick spiked roots at Yamato from his arm. Yamato leapt out of the way and ran through hand seals, Mokuten. Mikujaheki. Pillars of wood shot out of the ground and formed a dome around Yamato, blocking the incoming wood spikes. Naruto frowned and then grinned as he performed a hand sign with his free hand, origami no Kajiri. The spiked roots quickly split apart into paper and formed into several whirring buzzsaws and then sliced into the wooden wall created by the former Anbu member. Yamato saw the wood begin to split and opened up a port behind him in his wooden wall and got out just as the saw blades completely cut through. Naruto saw Yamato get out of the dome and was about to attack him. When he suddenly froze and his eyes widened. He then sighed in annoyance and sat with his legs crossed, grumbling about idiotic teammates and their stupid egos. Yamato saw Naruto's condition, aren't you going to attack me? Naruto sighed and scratched the back of his head. Why bother, even if I do I would have failed this test because my damn teammates aren't willing to work together. Yamato raised an eyebrow, how do you know that? Naruto stood up, you know those 3 kunai I threw at you? Yamato nodded his head. Those were actually transformed clones that I sent to get the 3 stooges to work with me. But apparently those 3 don't want to work together. Yamato raised an eyebrow, how do you know that? Naruto chuckled, Kage Bunshin was originally created to be a reconnaissance ninjutsu, if one dispels, then I get all the information that the clone originally had. I sent 3 clones to try and get the 3 of them. I can tell you exactly what they said. Naruto coughed and spoke in a voice sounding much like Kiba, no way you dead last orphan bastard. I will not work with my competition to Hinata's heart. He then coughed again and spoke in a voice very reminiscent of Sakura, no way you dead last dope, neither I nor Sasuke-kun needs the help of a worthless loser like you. He coughed again and spoke much like Sasuke, I am an Uchiha, an elite, I don't need the help of a clanless bastard. Yamato sighed as he massaged his temples. Naruto continued to speak, and to add to that, they all ran a kunai into my Kage Bunshin's chest, wholeheartedly thinking that they were the real me. Yamato gasped in shock, his own teammates attacked his Kage Bunshin with intent to kill, thinking it was the real Naruto. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. Well, since the test is now over and useless, I am going to go sit down. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an apple and bit into it. Juicy. He walked over to a nearby tree and continued to eat his apple. Yamato meanwhile was rubbing his temples, oh boy. 20 minutes later, Kakashi walked through the trees, confused as hell. He had snuck up on the 2 puppets and was about to take them down when they fell over, utterly useless. He had sealed them into a scroll and headed off to find his opponents. Only to find him and Yamato conversing over things such as architecture and botany. He walked up to them and asked, why aren't the 2 of you fighting? The test is still. Yamato interrupted Kakashi. The test is over, Naruto is the only one who gets the true meaning behind the test. The others would sooner stab their teammate in the back than work with him. Kakashi sighed. He hoped the last Uchiha would be smarter than this, he knew Kiba and Sakura were not smart enough to get it, but he expected the last Uchiha of all people to get it. He shrugged his shoulders and thought to himself, well, I am sure once we begin training him he will understand. 5 minutes later, Kiba, Sasuke, and Sakura were tied to the logs, while Naruto was arguing with Kakashi about his human puppets. Kakashi wanted to hand them over to Sasuke, thinking he would have more use for them, but Naruto told him that the 2 puppets were created by him and that he made certain that nobody else could use them except for him. Kakashi eventually relented and gave Naruto the scrolls, saying that if the Uchiha could not use them, then they were useless. Naruto tucked them away, but made certain to keep a close eye on Kakashi. Kakashi turned towards the group, alright, I have good news and bad news. The good news is that none of you will be sent back to the academy. The 3 tied-up genin cheered, but Naruto narrowed his eyes. The bad news is that all of you will be dropped from the shinobi program. What? All 4 of the genin shouted, with Naruto leaking killing intent. The blonde genin stepped forward and snapped at Kakashi. What the hell is there in dropping us from the shinobi program, you ass? Kakashi glared at Naruto, because none of you deserve it, not one of you could get the true meaning behind the test. Naruto snarled at Kakashi and shouted. None? Dumbass, I figured it out in the first few seconds, we had to work together as a team, why the hell do you think I sent those damn Kage Bunshin after those 3 to get them to help? Kakashi snorted, if the Uchiha could not figure it out, I doubt a dead last orphan could. Yamato stared at Kakashi in shock. This was not the man who he admired for so long. Naruto rolled his eyes and walked over to the 3 genin and reached into their pouch and pulled out a single kunai each. He tossed them towards Yamato who caught them, checking them for traces of my chakra. Yamato did as such and found that all three kunai had Naruto's chakra covering the entire blade. He looked at the three genin and gave them a haunting look, scaring them half to death. You three attacked Naruto without provocation with intent to kill. Sakura snapped, it was just a cage bunshin. Yamato glared at her and snapped. But you didn't know it was a cage bunshin until after you stabbed it, am I correct? Sakura opened her mouth to retort. Only to look down. Kakashi sighed, very well, I will give all of you a second chance. Naruto, you are allowed to eat. But do give them any of the bento. Kakashi and Yamato vanished, leaving Naruto with the three bentos. Naruto flicked his wrist and three bushes appeared in front of them. A sharp branch cut the ropes and he spoke, eat, you three need to keep your strength up. Fibble looked at Naruto with confusion, but Sensei said. Naruto cut him off before he could finish. Kakashi said that I wasn't allowed to feed you anything from the bento, he said nothing about growing a bush with food on it. Now eat. Sakura fed and said with disdain dripping from her voice, I don't need a dead lass to feed me uprf. Naruto grabbed a pear that he had grown and shoved it, large end first, into her mouth. Naruto shook his head, man, do you always complain? Naruto sat down and opened the bento. And he quickly pushed it to the side and grabbed an apple off of the bush in front of Kiba. Kiba frowned and whined, hey, that's mine. Naruto finished the apple and threw the core at Kiba. I grew it. It's mine. He took a pear from Sakura's bush and dealt with it. What did I just tell you for? Kakashi suddenly appeared in front of them and shouted. Naruto, unfazed by the killing intent answered, feeding my teammates, you didn't say a damn thing about not feeding them, you only said don't give them anything from the bento. Kakashi looked at Naruto, is that your excuse? Naruto bit into a peach he had grown on Sasuke's bush, pretty much. He tossed a pear at Kakashi. There you go. Kakashi caught the pear. And gave them an eye smile, then. You all pass. Same speech as in canon, minus Naruto shouting how he will be on the memorial stone. Naruto stood up and brushed himself off, well. If anybody needs me, I will be at my house. Asked Tsunade Oba-san for directions. Kakashi waved his hand. Then I noticed the uneaten bento. Hey Naruto, why didn't you eat the bento? I made it myself. Naruto sighed and walked over to the bento. He then walked over to Kakashi, because. Your food sucks. He opened it to reveal what looked like pre-chewed dog food and raw fish eggs and. Was that a tendril, a pile of junk that looks like it was pulled out of a toiletry system, does not count as food, who taught you how to cook? Kakashi scratched the back of his head, I kind of don't know how to cook. Naruto slapped his face, if this is my sensei. We are doomed. 2 weeks later, Naruto was gritting his teeth as he walked into the mission hall with Tora, the demon cat in a cage he made from his Mokuton abilities. And inside the room was Daimyo's wife. As soon as she saw Tora, she shouted, oh, my Tora-chan. She ran over and opened the cage before she scooped the cat in her arms. Oh mommy missed you so much. She began to squeeze the cat extremely tightly before she paid for the mission and left. Tsunade sighed and looked at the mission scrolls, okay, so for D-rank missions, we have to clean out the gutters, walking the Inizuka dogs. Tora. Tsunade cringed as she heard Daimyo's wife scream. Or you could. Crash. She looked up to see a large hole in the wall surrounded by tree roots and heard Naruto shouting out things that would make a sailor blush. 10 minutes later, Naruto came walking through the hole in the wall with Tora in one hand and the daimyo's wife being led into the room by the other. He turned towards the daimyo's wife and pointed to the cat, this is how you pet a cat. He gently set the cat up in a position that allowed it to be comfortable and began to gently stroke its fur, what you were doing was pushing it closer to its last remaining life. He placed the cat in the woman's arms, you try. The daimyo's wife gently petted the cat, which purred as it nuzzled into her chest. The woman smiled and skipped out the room. Naruto turned towards the others in the room. Who were staring at him in shock, what if I had to catch that damn cat one more time I was going to feed it to a rhinoceros beetle. Tsunade lightly chuckled, alright then. Well for D ranks we have. Naruto cut her off. With all due respect Tsunade-sama, I think we have done enough D ranks to qualify for a C rank. Iruka stood up, Naruto, your team is not ready for a C rank yet and you need to have. Naruto pulled out a shinobi handbook and looked inside. The no-Genin need to have a minimum of 36 completed D ranks to qualify for a C rank, Kiri requires 20, Iwa demands for 56, Suna needs at least 13, and Kumo requires a bare minimum of 27. He closed the book, thanks to my cage bunshin we have managed to complete 42 D ranks, and each of us have skills that are supplementary for at least a C rank. He snapped the book shut, I fail to see how we are not qualified for a C rank. Iruka wanted to retort. But could not find anything to disprove what Naruto said. Tsunade sighed, alright. We have one mission that you could go on. She pulled out a folder, 3 people from a foreign country came asking for bodyguards. They are willing to pay for a C rank mission. They have been waiting a week to get a team. She smiled, are you all willing to accept this mission? Naruto smirked, yes, we are Tsunade-sama. Tsunade nodded and pressed a button on her paw, send them in. The doors to the mission office opened and 3 people walked inside. Naruto turned around and looked at who had come. And his eyes widened. The 3 who walked in who saw Naruto also had their eyes widened. They all pointed at Naruto and shouted, Naruto. Naruto stared at the 3 people in front of him. It was Tazuna, Tsunami, and Inari. Suiton. Rensei Kadu water style. Drilling vortex. Water is converted into a rapidly spinning drill that can tear through rock and stone. Chapter 11. Crank, the plot thickens. Naruto's eyes widened in shock as he saw Inari, Tsunami, and Tazuna for the first time in a year, oh my kami. Inari ran up to Naruto and hugged his leg, Naruto Nyasan. The force of him charging into Naruto's leg sent him toppling over. Naruto smiled and chuckled as he patted Inari's head, Inari, it's great to see you again. He grinned and stood up, Inari still clutching his leg, man, you have gotten big, haven't you? Inari grinned a fox-like grin as he looked up at Naruto, yep, and I am stronger too. He flexed his arm, trying to show off his muscles. Naruto chuckled, that you are Inari. He looked up at Tazuna and Tsunami and smiled, hey Tazuna Jiji, Tsunami-chan. Tsunami smiled and walked over to Naruto, wrapping her arms around him in a warm hug. It's so good to see you again, Naruto. She smiled as she looked down at him, you have certainly grown the last time we saw you. She pinched his cheek playfully, have you been eating your vitamins? Naruto chuckled and rubbed his cheek. Yes Tsunami-chan, I have been eating my vitamins. Naruto then playfully poked her in the stomach, I really owe you for teaching me how to cook. I would have died of food poisoning from my own cooking years ago if it wasn't for you. Tsunami blushed at the praise as Tazuna walked up and patted the top of Naruto's head, ha, true, the first time you made us something to eat, I almost chucked it up then and there. While the 4 were talking, everyone in the room was watching the events unfold before them until Tsunade coughed, drawing the conversation to a close, Naruto, how is it that you know the clients? Naruto smiled, well, when I originally left Konoha years ago to train, I ended up in Nami no Kuni. He smiled and looked at Tazuna, Tsunami, and Inari. They helped me out back then. Tsunade raised an eyebrow and sighed, very well. Now, all of you are to be ready to head to Nami no Kuni in Okage-sama, if I may interject. Everyone turned to Kakashi, who was for once in a serious stance. Tsunade raised an eyebrow, what is Kakashi? Kakashi cleared his throat and looked her directly in the eyes. I believe Naruto should be forbidden from taking part in this mission. Naruto snarled at Kakashi, what? Kakashi ignored Naruto, due to Naruto's history with the client, it will prove as a conflict of interest and will likely result in the failure of the mission. I believe Naruto should not be allowed to accompany us on this mission. Yamato stared at Kakashi with a what the fuck expression on his face, not knowing how Kakashi can't say something like that. Tsunade frowned, denied, Naruto shall accompany you on this mission. Kakashi tried to protest, but Hokage-sama. Tsunade smashed her fist into the desk, cracking it as she snarled Naruto. Shall accompany you. On. This. Mission. Is there any part of you that you wish to try and protest, or shall I have you charged with insubordination? Kakashi gulped and lowered his head, and no Hokage-sama. Tsunade smirked, good. Now I want everyone ready to leave in 57 minutes. And Kakashi. She cast a harsh glance at Jonin. If you are so much as a second late, you will be demoted to academy student and have to retake the entire Shinobi Academy from scratch, am I clear? Kakashi's eyes widened as he vanished in a shunshin to get ready for the mission. Tsunade chuckled to herself and looked at the remaining members of the team, well. What are you waiting for, go get ready. Sasuke, Kiba and Sakura left, but not before casting harsh glares at Naruto. Yamato stayed behind as Naruto turned back to Tazuna, Tsunami, and Inari, so, this question has been bugging me, but how is Kaiza doing? Tsunami, Tazuna, and Inari flinched. But surprisingly hit it well. However, Naruto and Yamato noticed a sudden flinch. Tsunami smiled sweetly, he is back home. Naruto nodded his head, but made certain to remember this incident. 1 hour later, the team had set off on the mission a few minutes earlier, after each one had secured their materials. Naruto was wearing his usual outfit. But if one looked closely, they would notice that 3 of his scrolls were not in their usual place, and his stance allowed him to reach for his bow staff quickly. Yamato was also in a stance ready for attack. Every other shinobi in the group was lazily walking, as if this would be a walk in the park. Naruto sighed as he rubbed his forehead, why oh why did I get stuck with these people? Naruto was about to continue looking forward. Until he felt a pair of breasts press into his back. Sighing he turned his head, Kaiu-chan, what are you doing? Kyuubi grinned, hugging you. Naruto sighed once more. Kyuubi had insisted on coming with them. And since she was not a shinobi, there was nothing any of them could do to stop her from coming with them. Not that Kyuubi minded her company. He just wished that Kiba, Sasuke and Kakashi would stop sending lust-filled looks at her. Kyuubi smiled. Then her ears twitched as she glanced at an incoming puddle. Naruto and Yamato also noticed the puddle but made no move to show what they saw. Everyone else did not even notice it and continued on with their business. They had not walked 10 feet past the puddle before there was a surge of chakra, a cloud of smoke, and 2 shinobi with breathers and kiri headbands leapt out to attack the group. Kakashi's eyes widened in shock while the rest of the genin were frozen in fear. The 2 shinobi twisted their arms which had massive gauntlets on them, connected by a chain, and wrapped it around Naruto and Kyuubi, slicing them to bits. Inari shouted, "Naruto Naichin." The 2 shinobi hissed, "2 down," and charged at Tsunami, Tazuna, and Inari. Inari growled and reached into his back pocket, pulling out the same kunai Naruto had given him years before and stood in front of Tsunami and Tazuna, holding the kunai out. The 2 shinobi swung the chain, intent on chopping the 3 of them to bits. Only for them to trip as a sudden pressure wrapped around their ankles and yanked them so they fell on their face. Everyone stared in shock as the 2 shinobi were suddenly dragged into the forest by an invisible force. Several moments of silence passed until there was a slight clicking sound as the trees rustled and a figure stepped out of the forest, causing all their eyes to widen. The 2 shinobi were tied up by a glowing rope-like extension and were held in the mouth of what appeared to be a massive spider. The spider itself looked to have been made out of wood and steel and had been recolored to resemble an actual spider. The spider was easily as tall as a human being and sported 8 legs, each one ending with a spiked leg with serrations, and it had a glowing abdomen filled with what appeared to be chakra. Except it was a purplish color. It had 8 eyes and on the back of its abdomen, a tenchurin flower with a single red slitted eye in the center. But the spider itself was not what caused everyone's eyes to widen. It was who was riding atop it, Naruto Uzumaki and Kyuubi, who had just moments ago been sliced to bits. Naruto Nai-chan. Inari ran up towards Naruto as he got off of the giant spider. Inari sobbed into his leg, clutching him tightly. I thought you died. Naruto smiled and patted Inari's head. Hey, I ain't going to die that easily. Naruto smiled down at Inari. He then frowned, turning his gaze towards the 2 captured Kirin. Now, let's see what you 2 know. One of them scoffed, we'll never talk. Do your best. Naruto grinned darkly, oh I intend to. He raised his hand, which revealed 5 chakra strings connected between him and the spider, but first, introductions are in order. He flicked his wrist. The clicking sound was heard from the spider puppet. And 2 of the spider mandibles extended out and positioned themselves at the throats of the 2 Kirin. And a long needle shot out from both mandibles, just barely stopping before they pierced their flesh. Naruto motioned his middle and index finger, causing a whirring sound to be made inside the spider. The 2 needles were then filled with a black fluid, which was clearly toxic, and for a seal to slide onto the edge of the spider puppet's mandible. Naruto grinned as the Kirin started to sweat. Now. Where was I? Oh yes, introductions. He smiled, Demon Brothers. Meet Onagumo. He indicated towards the giant spider puppet, Onagumo. Meet dinner. One of the brothers was so scared he was actually shivering, while the other one scoffed a little, oh please, it's just a puppet. Naruto frowned, then smirked darkly, in a way. Yes, but how about a little biology lesson? When you are nearing death, your body starts to leak chakra in the bucket loads. To accommodate this little fact, the body also produces chakra at the same, if not a faster rate that the body is losing it. He pointed towards the spider's glowing abdomen, you see all that chakra back there? The 2 brothers turned their heads and looked at the spider's glowing orb of an abdomen, which was obviously filled with chakra. Naruto grinned at their confused looks. Onagumo is a special puppet, the only one capable of creating its own chakra strings. But for her to create the strings, she first needs a substantial amount of chakra in storage. Now admittedly, I contribute some of my chakra to the storage, as does Kaiu-chan, but Onagumo's primary method of gaining chakra is through those 2 seals. He pointed to the seals on the mandibles, those are chakra absorption seals, which are connected to chakra conducting pipes that bring the absorbed chakra through a series of purifying seals to make the chakra usable by her and allow her to create chakra strings that she can use much like how a spider can use silk. The 2 Kirin stared at him blankly, and you are telling us this why? Naruto shrugged, I thought I should let you both know how you are going to die. He moved his thumb. The mandible on the left side stabbed into one of the brother's neck and injected the poison. At first, the brother merely suffered a slight pinch of pain as the toxin dripped into his system. And then a pull on his chakra. And then he was suddenly filled with agony as his chakra was yanked out of his body and felt his very chakra network get torn from how rough the chakra was being pulled on. The other brother watched as his brother seethed in pain, twitching repetitively as his chakra was being ripped from his body by the now glowing seal on the mandible. Finally, the seal stopped glowing and his brother panted as the needle was removed from his neck. Naruto smiled, now, unless you want to suffer again, I suggest you start talking. Now. The brother who had been put through the torment immediately cracked, I'll talk. We were hired to kill the bridge builder and his family by Gato of Gato Industries. Naruto's eyes widened in shock, not expecting that answer, and he turned his attention towards Tazuna, Tsunami, and Inari, who were nervously looking away. Sighing, he flicked his wrist, revealing two puppet scrolls. One had the image of a spider on it, while the other had the kanji for Fun. He flicked his wrist again, opening both scrolls. One of them was covered in a cloud of smoke. Once the smoke disappeared, it revealed what appeared to be a barrel, but was odd in its dimensions. It somewhat resembled a reverse Hercules with 6 limbs. It had 4 legs, each one only 90 degrees away from another limb, and it had 2 arms. It was covered in a vast menagerie of various seals. Naruto held out his other hand, allowing chakra strings to attach to the barrel-shaped puppet, causing it to split open on one side, and a rack filled with scrolls extended outward. The arms of the puppet grabbed 2 scrolls, each one with the kanji for human, and rolled them open, revealing an extremely complicated seal array. Anagumo threw the 2 Kirin in, and they vanished into a cloud of smoke. Once the cloud dissipated, it revealed the scrolls, which now had a few new kanji on them, signifying that they were currently in use. Anagumo reached out with one of her arms and touched the scroll that had a spider on it, and it too vanished in a cloud of smoke. Naruto tucked it away in one of the 3 empty scroll spaces, and then sealed Fun away, before placing it in one of the other empty scroll spaces. Sighing, Naruto turned towards Tazuna, Tsunami, and Inari. What's going on in Nami no Kuni? And I mean what's really going on? Tazuna sighed. And looked up, we're sorry for deceiving you, but we had no other alternative. Our country has been overtaken by a man known as Gato. Of Gato Industries. On the surface, he sells goods via shipping industry, but beneath the surface, he is a cruel tyrant at the heart of a series of illegal trades. Drugs, human trafficking, weapons, the whole works. Tsunami continued. Our country is so poor that not even our daimyo has that much money anymore. We barely manage to scrounge enough money together from everyone in Nami no Kuni to afford a C-rank mission. Naruto frowned, why hasn't anyone tried to fight? Surely Kaiza could rally the villagers together to stop this man. All 3 of their heads fell. And Inari whimpered out, T2-san. A few tears flowed down his cheeks. Tazuna sighed, Gato knew that Kaiza would be able to rally the villagers together, so before he made it official that he had taken over. He. Tazuna could not hold in his tears and wiped his eyes. Tsunami choked out, they killed Kaiza-kun. In a public execution. Naruto's eyes widened as he processed this information. Kakashi spoke up, since you lied to us about the mission, we will not be completing it. Kakashi turned away and began to walk off, your plight is no longer our concern. I'm not leaving them, Kakashi. Everyone looked towards Naruto, who was standing straight up, glaring intensely at Kakashi. Kakashi narrowed his eyes. Are you disobeying a direct order from your Jonin-sensei Genin? Naruto crossed his arms, that sure as hell is what it looks like. And personally I don't give a shit. If you want to report me to Hokage-sama, then by all means do it. She is more likely to demote you to Genin for leaving me to complete a mission clearly above my station in rank than she is to punish me Haddock. He looked at his 3 old friends. I will not leave them to suffer and die while I can help them. Even if I have to fight all of Gato's army by myself. Yamato smiled at Naruto's nobility. Truly, Naruto's heart was the greatest amongst the group. Kyuubi smiled and stood by Naruto, and since I am not an official shinobi, you can't tell me what to do anyways. She stuck her tongue out and dragged her finger under her eyelid childishly, making raspberry noises. Kakashi was about to try scolding Naruto again. If the dobe is going, then I'm going. I will not be outdone by a clanless orphan. Everyone looked at Sasuke, who had been the one to speak up. Sakura grinned, yeah, Sasuke-kun could take on Gato's army without breaking a sweat. Cha. Hiba grinned, like I am going to lose to this bastard, I will win Hinata-chan's heart. Kakashi looked at them. And my eyes smiled. Well, if Sasuke is willing to do it, I see no real issues. Yamato sneered at Kakashi as the team shouted in approval. Naruto smiled and walked with Tazuna, Tsunami, and Inari. Sasuke and Sakura, along with Kiba followed up. Kakashi was about to follow. When Yamato grabbed his shoulder, Kakashi-senpai. Can I speak to you for a moment? Kakashi smiled, sure, what is it You've? Kakashi doubled over as Yamato struck him full force in the stomach and was yanked up by his hair by a pissed-off Yamato. Yamato sneered, you disgust me. First you pick favorites with your squad, even though you had made damn well sure that Naruto was on your team, you are clearly doing everything you can to stunt his growth. I know it has nothing to do with Kyuubi, as you are smart enough to know that Naruto could never be overtaken by Kyuubi's influence. Now you are willing to send a family to their deaths and allowing a country to fall to ruin to a corporate madman, all because you won't get your pay, and you only agree to help them when Sasuke, a spoiled brat, wants to continue the mission. He shoved Kakashi to the ground, mark my words, Kakashi-senpai. Tsunade-sama will hear of this. He walked past Kakashi as he stumbled to get to his feet. Meanwhile, 3 individuals sat in a small room, all of whom were clearly dangerous. The first figure was a large man sitting on a couch, whose face was covered by some sort of cloth, and his slightly spiky hair fell over the rest of his face. He had 2 large sleeves on his arms and had a pair of combat-ready pants. At his side, a large blade, easily the man's size, laid against his seat. The second figure was smaller, about the height of an average teenager. The figure was wearing some sort of battle dress garments, and their hair was in a feminine bow. The last figure stood in the shadows and was rather tall. They had long hair that reached past their shoulders, and they wore what appeared to be a jonin vest, and he wore some sort of fur-based cloak over his shoulders. The rest of his attire was average. At first glance, the man in the corner snorted, "It's been 3 hours. Your lackeys have failed you." The man sitting on the couch looked up and grabbed his blade, so it would seem. "I guess it's my turn then." He stood up and walked towards the door, followed closely by the figure wearing the battle dress. The man in the shadows spoke up, "Zabuza. Don't go and get yourself killed." Clearly sounding insincere about it. The man now known as Zabuza stopped and looked back, "So says the one whose entire squad was killed. Hunting for a kid." He walked out the door, closing it behind him. The man raised his head as the wind blew back the curtains, allowing the light to enter, revealing his features. The man's skin was pale as death and his eyes were golden and slitted like a snake. The man grinned darkly, "That may be. But I am the one who survived." The light shimmered over his forehead, revealing his slashed Konoha forehead protector. 3 hours later, Naruto and his team walked through a thick mist in Nami no Kuni, all the while watching out for any possible attacks. Naruto suddenly stopped and threw a kunai into the bushes. He walked over to the bush, revealing a snow-white rabbit. Kakashi's eyes smile, "Congratulations Naruto, you managed to save us from a little white rabbit." Naruto frowned at Kakashi. "Did you ever take biology lessons, Kakashi, or do they not teach you that in School of the Dumbuses?" He held up the rabbit, which was still quivering. "This rabbit is pure white, a winter coat, and it is the middle of the summer. Now think about this for a second. Why would a rabbit with a winter coat be here in the middle of the summer?" Kakashi stared at Naruto for a bit. Then his eyes widened in realization, "Substitution." Naruto nodded his head. Then his eyes widened, "Everyone down." He grabbed Tsunami, Tazuna and Inari and brought them down as a gigantic sword flew over their heads and sliced into a tree. Naruto quickly got up and readied himself into a battle stance and looked around. Well. Looks like we got ourselves a fighter." Naruto turned in the direction of the voice to see a man standing on the hilt of the gigantic sword, "But how about we do this the easy way? Just hand over the bridge builder and his family and nobody gets hurt." Naruto flicked his wrist, another scroll flying out of it. "This one having a shield-wielding suit of armor on it, you are going to take them over my cold dead body. Zabuza Mamachi." Zabuza sighed, "You know my name, yet you are still willing to fight." Naruto smirked, "If I can fight, kiss him and go to a standstill. I'm pretty sure I can handle the weakest of the 7 swordsmen." He unrolled the scroll and was covered in a cloud of smoke. Zabuza frowned and waited to see what Naruto would pull, watching as the smoke disappeared. Once the smoke vanished, it revealed an interesting sight. A large puppet, at least 10 feet tall, with Naruto sitting where the chest would be, his arms inside the puppet's arms and his legs inside the puppet's legs. A single wooden armor piece fell over the chest area, which had a single crimson glass orb on it. The arms each sported 3-fingered hands, including the thumb, and both legs were sporting 2 large toes on them. One of the arms reached out, and a large pole made completely out of wood shot out of the ground into its hands. The puppet, with the dexterity of a regular human, spun the pole and stood in a battle stance. Zabuza grinned, "Ah. It's been a while since I fought a puppet user. This ought to be fun." He ripped his blade out of the tree and flew at the giant puppet, swinging his sword down, which was blocked by the puppet's staff. The battle has begun. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoy it. Turn on that bell notification. Like, subscribe and comment down below. And also check out the others' videos I have created and enjoyed it. See you guys next video.